The Moon Daughter. Chapter 17. Selena stood on the rampart with the collar of Ronan's cloak tucked beneath her chin, staring over rooftops still silvered by starlight. Snow lay in soft mounds on every ledge, undisturbed since the midnight patrols had passed. A thin seam of pink touched the horizon, the faintest suggestion of dawn. Behind her, the torches crackled and hissed, but the village below was calm. People sleeping, guards yawning through the end of a long watch. It felt like the quiet breath before a violin's first note. Ronan came up the steps, footfalls muffled by frost. He carried a steaming mug that smelled of pine needle tea and winterberry. Kalis's presence walked beside him, invisible but tangible, like warm hands pressed to Selena's shoulders. Astra twin-stepped inside her chest, pleased and alert. "You slipped out without boots," Ronan said, pressing the mug into her hands. "My feet know the stones," she replied, "and the frost likes me." She tipped the cup. The tea slid down her throat in a gentle burn, clearing sleep grit from her eyes. "I was listening. The keep sounds different after Vows." "Quieter," he agreed, leaning against the parapet. Snowflakes touched his dark hair, glimmering like sparks before melting. Or maybe we notice silence more now. Selena set the mug on the stone ledge and pulled a length of silver thread from her pocket. "Hold still." She bent, looped it through the cuff seam of his left sleeve, and tied a tiny braid of metallic strands. "So, you carry a piece of starlight?" He flexed his wrist, admiring the gleam. "Then you need a traveling guard wolf." From his other hand he produced a copper charm, no bigger than her thumbnail, shaped like a wolf standing on its hind legs beneath a crescent. The metal was smooth with age, edges softened by thumbs pressing luck through generations. He slipped it into her braid near her ear, twisting the strands to secure it. Warmth tingled along her scalp. "Now it listens to your frost," he said. She touched the charm. "Do you think these little things matter when shadows swing axes?" "Symbols matter," he said. "They remind us why the axes won't win." He reached for her free hand, brushing knuckles with a thumb. "I dreamed last night that we planted those herb beds behind the west wall. The seeds sprouted instantly, like they knew we needed hope." Astra pulsed soft laughter. Kalis rumbled agreement. Selena smiled. "Then we owe the seeds a garden." Ronan squeezed her fingers. "And a tower of glass." She leaned into him, forehead resting against his shoulder. Dawn brightened, washing the village in pink and gold. Patrols changed below, the old guard stamping cold feet, the new guard rubbing sleep from their eyes. It amazed Selena how ordinary life continued even when they all knew a monster breathed outside the ward lines. "We should meet Jonas," Ronan said after a moment. "Yes, before he sends Vaughn to drag us." She turned, lifting the mug for one last gulp. Steam curled around her braid, catching on the copper charm before disappearing. They descended into halls alive with purposeful footsteps. The council chamber doors were already ajar. Candlelight flickered inside, illuminating maps pinned over previous maps, layers of lines and runes and supply lists. Jonas stood near the hearth, hair unbound, tapping a quill against his cheek. Vaughn leaned over a tally sheet, one hand braced at the small of his back. Reese polished a spyglass, as if wiping fingerprints could erase looming danger. Elders Nadra and Auric conferred in hushed tones while Ileana rested one palm over her ever-glowing crystal. Conversation paused when Selena and Ronan entered, as if their presence was a hearth laid upon the table. Kalis patted through Ronan's chest, a silent show of rank and reassurance. Astra brushed along Selena's ribs, prompting her spine to straighten. "Good timing," Jonas said, setting down the quill. "We finished the new stock count. 2,000 moon salt packets, 800 frost arrowheads, 3 days of bloodroot salve." "Stone shapers arrive at midday," Vaughn added. "Kalen's riders brought extra sleds." Selena smiled toward the Silver Ridge Alpha standing near the window. Kalen bowed slightly, expression earnest. "If frost and fire can share a kiss, stone and steel can share a wall." Lady Era stepped forward in a cloak trimmed with watershine blues. River menders stand ready to freeze any breached channels. Thornpine sent pine tar for torches. Ronan nodded. Crescent-Fang thanks every ally. We will repay in peace once this threat ends. He rested a palm on Selena's back. My mate's Frost taught us how to braid strengths. Keep braiding. Heat rose in Selena's cheeks, but it felt like sunlight, not embarrassment. She surveyed the curved table. We need watchers who understand cold flame. I want 2 volunteers from every visiting pack to train with our ward teams today. By sunset, each of you should know how to breathe frost silence over cursed ice. Alphas exchanged glances, some skeptical, most intrigued. Era smiled. Kalen's eyes shone. A Low Valley twin raised his hand. Low Valley will send 3. Selena's pulse lifted. Thank you. Ileana's sphere dimmed and brightened, dimmed again. Her voice cut through the planning hum. Frost pressure has doubled since last sundown. Sunrise tomorrow could fracture wards unless we weave new anchors tonight. Then training can't wait, Ronan said. Jonas, schedule drills in the south yard. Vaughn, rotate watchers to learn rune breathing. Reese, finish scout patrol charts. What about you two? Nadra asked, quill hovering. Selena answered, we teach beside everyone else. Ronan added, leadership isn't distance, it's example. Asterisk love is example, asterisk, Astra whispered. Kalis thumped a silent tale. The meeting broke into clusters of action. Era cornered Jonas to discuss water wards. Reese guided a shy Thornpine messenger toward the armory. Selena found herself beside Kalen again. You disarmed half a hall of fear with 3 sentences, he said, admiration sincere. Fear is louder when it thinks it's alone, Selena replied. Your tower dream is contagious, Kalen teased softly. We might all build towers after this. She laughed, feeling Ronan's easy acceptance echo through the bond. The quick, phantom jealousy of earlier had faded, replaced by confidence. Ronan touched Kalen's elbow. Stone Shapers meet you at Southgate. It was a thank you wrapped in command tone. Kalen bowed and departed. Jonas opened the chamber doors. South yard in 10 breaths, he called. Snowflakes drifted thick as petals while Selena crossed the yard, cloak edged with frost lilies swirling around her boots. 24 warriors, Crescent-Fang, Riverstone, Silver Ridge, Thornpine, formed rows. Villagers lined fences, eager but nervous, copies of frost breath charts flapping in mittens. Corin and Lisa sat atop a barrel, legs dangling, humming the latest rhyme under their breath. Selena drew a circle in snow with her heel. We begin with the breath. Inhale 4 counts. Hold the shape of the rune in your mind. Exhale on the rune word. Ronan stood opposite, demonstrating posture. He corrected a Thornpine guard's elbow, knuckles brushing Selena's hip each time their paths crossed. Tiny sparks skittered between their fingertips, unhidden, unashamed. They led repetitions until steam rose like ghosts from every mouth. At the 7th pass, frost spiraled beautifully from villagers' palms, dancing over the snow before settling. Lysa squealed, "It looks like flower seeds." Corin attempted a flourish and slipped. Vaughn caught him under the arms, steadying him without scolding. Laughter rippled, dissolving tension like sugar in hot tea. Selena moved down the line. A Riverstone mage fumbled the breath. Frost spiked jagged, threatening to shatter. Selena laid her palm on his wrist, guiding the exhale. Harmony returned, ice smoothing into lace. But as drills continued, she sensed her own frost rising too fast, pulled by some invisible undertow. The edges of her vision shimmered blue. A rune in her palm sparked, then cracked. A tiny fracture, but enough to sting. She hid the wince. Ronan noticed. He crossed the circle, taking her hands. Pause. "I'm fine," she whispered. "You're too bright," he countered. The crowd hushed, watching. She tried to shake her head, to prove steadiness, but the weaver's distant whisper scraped her skull, cold as iron, sharp as memory. Fear flashed, Frost crept uncontrolled down her sleeves. Ronan cupped her cheeks. "Breathe with me." His voice was gentle, steady. Kalis pressed a deep bass hum into her chest. Astra mirrored it, a soft chord of calm. Selena inhaled on 4 counts, held the rune shape of stillness, exhaled her name instead of power. Frost receded, smoothing. The hush broke into relieved murmuring. "Thank you," she whispered. "Always," he answered, kissing her forehead. Corin clapped enthusiastically. Others followed, turning panic into cheer. Selena's shoulders relaxed. Training resumed with slower counts. As the sun climbed, flakes shrank to a light dusting. By noon, drills concluded with confident waves of frost, weaving like ribbons around the yard. Even Vaughn managed a respectable spiral, though he muttered it would never top swordplay. Jonas dismissed troops for soup and bread. Selena leaned against the oak post near the barn, sipping hot broth from a wooden cup. Ronan stood beside her, sharing silent reflection. Kalis padded in circles within Ronan, satisfied but wary. Astra rested against Selena's ribs, catching her breath. Reese approached, spyglass tucked in belt. Western Lookout reports column of cold fire half a league out, holding position. Selena stiffened, broth sloshing. "So it begins." Ronan set his cup down. "We meet it." Jonas and Vaughn fell in before he could shout. Scouts reported flame height, wind direction, snow depth like numbers in a ledger. Selena's heartbeat kept time. They marched across the courtyard, through the postern gate, past ward stones that glowed faint indigo. The forest loomed, winter leaves rattling, snow mounded around trunks, a quiet so thick it felt oiled. They saw the column at once, a pillar of ice alight with unnatural fire, tongues of blue licking upward without heat, yet melting snow in wide rings. Selena's frost answered instinctively, a ripple through her marrow. The column pulsed as if acknowledging her. Ronan stepped forward, drawing his short sword though metal felt useless. Selena joined him, palms raised. Their wolves appeared, Kalis tall and gray, Astra silver-white, circling the column. Together, Selena and Ronan inhaled, exhaled, shaping frost and heat that swirled into a helix. It struck the column, wrapping, squeezing. Cracks sounded like distant glass. The pillar split with a sigh, shattering into harmless shards. But the moment victory bloomed, Selena reeled. The weaver's mind brushed hers, a cold corridor of mirrors all reflecting her face twisted by frost. She gasped. Ronan caught her elbows. "Talk to me," he urged. "I felt it," she whispered, eyes wide. "It knows me." Her pulse hammered. Astra shivered, then steadied. Ronan's voice was a growl wrapped in silk. "Wherever you go, I go." She looked at him, tears bright. "I don't want to be brave alone." "You won't be." He pulled her close until heartbeat touched heartbeat. Never again. Kalis pressed a reassuring muzzle against Astra. She leaned into him, threads of silver weaving with gray. Jonas signaled retreat. No more attacks brewing yet. They returned to the keep. Afternoon clouds thickened, promising another heavy snow. Selena peeled off damp gloves, fingers trembling. Ronan guided her to the frost garden. It smelled of pine resin and cold earth. They knelt in the ring of moon salt, writing tiny promises on parchment squares. Selena's hand shook as she wrote, then steadied at the words, "I will remember your voice if the world falls silent." Ronan's lips moved as he penned, "I will build you a tower from memory and stone if I must." They folded the promises, set them on a flat stone, and touched them with frost-kissed flame. The papers curled, smoke rising in graceful spirals into falling snow. Their wolves circled, tails nearly brushing. A silent dance of vow and acceptance. Selena leaned into Ronan's side, his arm wrapped around her shoulders. "We'll come back," he said. "We will," she agreed. Snowflakes kissed their eyelashes as they stood. Evening bells tolled, calling council once more, this time to choose a road into darkness. Selena followed Ronan into the audience chamber where the flicker of dozens of lanterns turned maps and scrolls into waving shadows. Elders Nadra and Doric sat at the head table, spines straight, quills poised but unmoving. Ilyana stood behind them, one hand resting on her crystal sphere. Tonight its glow was muddy violet instead of soft blue. Hilda arrived with Myron, Corin, and Lisa in tow. Jonas, Vaughn, and Reese took seats beside the visiting alphas. Era drummed lacquered nails on the table. Kalen spun a stone shaper's chisel between his fingers. Tension smelled like cold iron and pine pitch. Ronan remained standing. Report status. Jonas cleared his throat. No flare since the west column. Scouts confirm smaller sparks flickering in the far timber like the weaver is feeling along the edges. Reese unrolled a parchment. Outer runes held after reinforcement, but we saw fine cracks along the north wall. Patching every hour. Supplies? Ronan asked. Vaughn tapped a ledger. Moon salt is half what we need for a week-long siege. Arrowheads steady. Food stores good, if we ration honey. Lisa whispered to Corin, "No honey on porridge?" Tragedy. Corin shushed her but chuckled. Auric cleared his throat. Resources matter, yet danger grows. Ilyana, speak. Ilyana stepped forward. Her silver-threaded hair looked dull, as if the candlelight feared to touch her. The Shadow Weaver anchors itself under the frost caves beyond the spine. The magic there is older than any pack, older than recorded moon cycles. Waiting here invites siege, and each surge weakens Selena faster. Her gaze rested on the protector, striking the source before full blood moon could cut the tether. Selena felt Astra tense, not with fear but with recognition, as if the wolf had already scented that cave in some ancient dream. Kalis rumbled agreement, a quiet echo in Ronan's chest. Selena's pulse steadied. "I'll go," she said. "Tonight if needed." Murmurs erupted. A Low Valley delegate stood. "If the Weaver wants her power, sending her alone is folly." "She will not go alone," Ronan said, calm but unyielding. "I go." Kalen rose next, expression open. "Silver Ridge will guard this keep. Our stone shapers can reinforce every wall." Lady Era nodded. "Riverstone commits healers and menders." Nadra's gaze lingered on Selena. "Do you understand the risk? This Weaver may try to consume your frost entirely." Selena nodded. "Risk is certain, but every hour we delay, more flames rise. I'd rather fight in the dark beyond our walls than see this place burn from within." Jonas leaned forward. "Let us send 2 squads with you." Ronan shook his head. "A large force will echo through caves like thunder. We need speed, silence." He looked to Selena. "A vanguard of 6. No more." "I choose Vaughn," Selena said. "His bow can cut any shadow." "Reese for his healer's calm," Ronan added. Kalen stepped forward. "I'd lend a stone shaper with quiet feet, trained in underground mapping." Ronan studied him. "Name?" "Dara," Kalen replied. "Speaks little, sees everything." "Accepted." Ronan turned to Jonas. "You keep Crescent-Fang while we are gone." Jonas saluted. "Protect the heart, sir." Auric stood, shoulders heavy. "Then before moonrise you must prepare." He opened a box and removed 2 thin bands of moonsteel. By old law, these are worn by those who venture beyond ward lines to face ancient dark. They hold a single drop of sunstone at the center, one flash to blind cursed eyes. Use them once. Use them wisely. Selena accepted hers, sliding it into a hidden pocket near her ribs. Ronan did the same. She felt the tiny, warm pulse of sunstone against her skin, like a private promise. Hilda tapped her cane. "Enough gloom, we feed heroes before they go." The council adjourned. Corridors filled with the bustle of last-minute plans, supplies being weighed, arrows inspected, boots resoled, rune chalk restocked. Selena moved through it all like a remembered song, stopping to touch a villager's arm, to share a word of courage, to brush frost across a child's shoulder and promise safety. In the kitchen, cauldrons bubbled with onion stew thickened by barley. Hilda directed servers while Mirren dusted honey cakes with powdered clove. Selena admired the soft gloves Mirren handed her. White deerskin, palms sewn with frost runes and pale blue thread. Protection against cold fire, Mirren said. Reese watched to be sure. Selena pulled them on, flexing fingers. They feel like second skin. She hugged her friend hard. Corin approached with a wooden carving of a star set inside a wolf's paw. For your tower, he said shyly. Lisa stood on tiptoe to attach a tiny bell to Selena's braid. In case the cave gets too dark, shake it. We'll hear you here. Selena swallowed a sudden knot. Astra brushed warmth around her heart. I'll bring it home ringing. In the great hall, long tables filled quickly. The usual litany of clatter and talking felt sharper tonight, every laugh tinged with what-ifs. Ronan and Selena sat side by side. Jonas took the seat to Ronan's left, Reese across, Vaughn at Selena's right, eyes scanning exits between spoonfuls of stew. Ronan raised his cup. To the keep that taught us hope. To the love that teaches us courage. He touched his rim to Selena's gently. The hall echoed as cups met wood. A shy Low Valley twin produced a fiddle, bowed trembling until Lysa skipped up and sang a new rhyme, short and sweet. By the third line, the twin found rhythm. By the fifth, servants clapped along. Warmth chased cold up Selena's arms. After stew came platters of root vegetables roasted with thyme, then honey cakes, soft enough to melt on tongues. Selena fed Ronan a crumb. He caught her fingertips with his lips until she laughed. Kailas hummed approval. Astra twined around Kailas like mist. Feast ended too soon. The farewell crowds thinned to clusters of hugs, quiet prayers, awkward jokes. Era clasped Selena's arm. Return and teach Riverstone the breath, she urged. Selena promised. Kaelin clasped Ronan's forearm. Stone holds. We keep Crescent-Fang standing. Ronan nodded, trust in his eyes. Midnight candles reach low wax. Hilda shooed everyone but the departing six toward dormitories. Myron pressed fresh scarves into Selena's pack. Jonas checked weapon straps twice, undoing and redoing knots. Vaughn sharpened arrowheads until they gleamed like starlight. Reese tucked healing salves into inner pockets, humming a lullaby older than any map. Eventually, Selena and Ronan escaped into their private quarters. Candlelight flickered off bathwater, waiting in the copper tub by the hearth. Steam curled invitingly. It seems someone prepared ahead, Selena said. That someone had help. Ronan shrugged off his cloak. And bribes of honey cake. They undressed slowly, unpinning each other's clasps. Laughter replacing nerves. Selena slid into the water first, exhaling at the warmth. Ronan followed, knees brushing hers. Balsam oil scented the steam. Selena reached for a cloth, dipped it, and began to wash the salt dust from his forearms. He returned the favor, smoothing gentle circles over her shoulders. Their conversation flowed in low voices. She asked what herbs he'd plant first. He described rows of lavender for bees and night-blooming moonflowers for her tower view. She confessed a wish to learn the names of constellations beyond the northern crown. He offered to carve wooden replicas for each star, hanging them in the garden so she could feel constellations, even on cloudy nights. They laughed over Corin's dramatic bow practice, over Vaughn's alarming fondness for scolding, over Lysa's relentless bell attachments. They fell silent only when words felt too small, and in that space they memorized the curve of each other's smiles, the pattern of breath near collarbones, the way heartbeats stumbled at odd moments before sinking again. When they left the tub, towels warmed by the hearth-swallowed droplets, Selena traced the silver braid in Ronan's cuff. If it unravels, follow the thread to find me. He lifted her copper wolf charm. And if this tarnishes, know I polish it until I see your eyes in every curve. Candles cast halos around them as they moved to bed. Their lovemaking was quiet, punctuated by soft laughs and tear-bright eyes when tenderness overflowed. Astra and Kalis glowed within them, no longer separate silhouettes, but overlapping shadows. Ears indistinguishable, tails twined like one. Later they lay entangled in warm silence. Ronan brushed hair from her face. If fear finds you out there, remember this room. You are the room, she whispered, with or without walls. Snow muffled the world outside the small window. In the hush, Selena opened her palm. Frost bloomed softly, forming a tiny tower of perfect ice. She set it on the bedside table. A promise. Ronan smiled, blowing a warm breath that did not melt it. Then I'll bring soil for its garden. They slept a few hours intertwined beneath thick quilts. At first light, Rhys knocked. Dawn ride in 30. Selena rose, fastening deerskin gloves. Ronan strapped twin blades at his hips. She draped her cloak, fastening the moonwolf clasp. They left the room hand in hand, Kalis and Astra padding ghost-like ahead. In the courtyard, fresh snow crunched under boots. Jonas waited beside 6 saddled horses. Ronan's gray gelding, Selena's pale mare, Vaughn's chestnut, Rhys's black gelding, Kalen's stone-shaper Dara on a shaggy dun. Ilyana stood nearby, placing a rune chalk satchel in Selena's pack. Sunstone bands? She asked. On us, Selena assured. Hilda marched forward, cane punching snow. Return before ulcers set in from worry, she ordered Ronan, then pulled Selena into a fierce hug. And keep him from brooding. I'll try. Selena laughed, voice thick. Mirren adjusted Selena's cloak hem, eyes shining. We'll watch the tower spot. Corin and Lisa ran up. Corin handed Ronan a small steel nail. For the garden fence, he said. Lisa attached one more bell to Selena's saddlebag. For luck. Snow began to fall again, large silent flakes swirling in new light. Ronan mounted and offered Selena his hand. She swung up behind him for one breath, pressing her cheek to his back, then slid to her own saddle. The others mounted, hooves shifting impatiently. Before gates opened, Selena turned to the gathered crowd. We follow the silver trail, she said, voice ringing clear. Keep the hearth burning. Ronan met her gaze. They spoke the final vow in unison, voice and heart and wolf thread bound. Your heartbeat is my compass and your frost is my shield. Kalis and Astra appeared a breath longer, gray and silver forms bright against the white world, then leapt forward, leading the way into the tree-shadowed horizon. Horses' hooves pounded, bells rang a soft jingle, and behind them Crescent-Fang's gates closed with the promise of hope burning on every stone. They rode in tight formation, cloak edges snapping. Selena glanced back once, saw Mirren waving a gloved hand, Hilda lifting her cane like a sword, and children's voices carrying on the wind. Frost and Fang, 2 hearts in flame, and no curse can break what love became. With that song chasing them, they vanished into the whispering pines, love blazing brighter than fear. Snow muffled the world outside Crescent-Fang long before the riders saw sunrise again. They followed the narrow hunting trail that wound between pine trunks glazed with hoarfrost, hooves crunching over brittle crust. Selena rode near the front, Ronan's mare pacing close enough that their knees brushed from time to time. Vaughn and Rhys flanked behind, eyes scanning branches for glimmers of cursed fire. Dara, hood pulled low, guided her shaggy horse with quiet taps, every so often laying one bare palm to the ground as if listening to stone far below the snowpack. Kalis padded ahead in ghost form, silent, gray, determined, while Astra trotted at Selena's stirrup, tail curled high. No one questioned the spectral wolves. Their presence felt like a blessing stitched directly into the cold air. By mid-morning the forest thinned, revealing a wide glacial valley where drifts stacked against granite outcrops. Rhys called a halt beside a crooked spruce leaning over a half-frozen stream. Water and rest, he ordered, trading healer's tone for field captain crispness. Selena dismounted, stretching icy muscles. Frost crackled where her boots met packed snow. She pressed a hand to the stream's glassy surface. It eased open, offering a dark mirror beneath. She filled canteens while Vaughn checked arrowheads, turning each one so sunstone slivers caught faint winter light. Ronan joined her, crouching at the water's edge. Steam rose from his gloves, heating runes woven by Ilyana. Dara says the caves start in the ridge just ahead, he murmured. 2 hours, if snow stays shallow. Selena studied the ridge, a white tooth against bleached sky. From this distance it looked harmless, just another wall of winter. But the faint tug she'd felt at the column now pulled stronger, a sinister thread linking frost to something hollow and hungry. Astra pressed at her thoughts. We meet it as one. Kalis replied through Ronan. Pack never walks alone. Selena exhaled. Tell me a thought that makes you smile, she said, rummaging for warmth inside her mind. Ronan skimmed knuckles under her braid. Corin lecturing Jonas on sword etiquette. She laughed short, unexpected. Jonas would combust from pride. Combust quietly, Ronan said, earning an eye roll that made them both feel lighter. Dara rose from her crouch. Stone shifts beneath us, she said in a low, even voice. Not yet cracking, but listening. Selena nodded. Thank you. They mounted again. The path climbed in weaving switchbacks, wind sharpening as it funneled between cliffs. Ice feathers clung to Selena's lashes. Ahead, bare rock jutted where snow could not cling, dark ribs of the mountain exposed to brittle air. In their cracks, a faint turquoise glow pulsed like a heartbeat. That's new, Vaughn muttered, knocking an arrow. It's drawing on the earth, Dara warned. We need to move softer. Ronan raised his hand. The party dismounted, leading horses around a spur to a narrow shelter beneath an overhang. Reese stroked the nervous mare. We camp here, Vaughn, with me for perimeter runes. Selena and Ronan shouldered packs and followed Dara up a cleft barely wide enough for one. The ridgeline beyond descended into a bowl of glittering snow, cut by a single yawning fissure. Turquoise light seeped through cracks in the ice around its mouth, pulsing in rhythm with Selena's heart. She swallowed. The frost caves. Kalis prowled at the rim, hackles bristling. Astra pressed flank to his, unity strong. Ronan wrapped an arm around Selena's shoulders. Last chance to return and let me be foolish alone. She leaned into him. I'd rather die beside hope than live behind walls of fear. He closed his eyes, kissed her forehead. Then we go together. They returned to camp at dusk. Vaughn had set arrow talismans along likely approaches. Reese stamped down a flat space inside the overhang, using a healing knife to shave slivers of ice for meltwater. Horses huddled under blankets. Night fell fast in the valley, shadows stretching like claws. Selena unpacked Myron's gloves, feeling thread runes warm her palms. They ate quietly. Hard cheese, seed cake, and dried apple. Spark snaps from Vaughn's flint echoed too loud in the hush. Flames rose anyway, flickering orange against granite. Shadows danced over Selena's copper charm, making the tiny wolf appear to run. After supper, Reese brewed pine needle tea. He handed Selena a cup, brow pinched with gentle concern. You'll need focus tomorrow. She nodded, sipping. The brew tasted like forest floor after rain, clearing heaviness from her lungs. Ronan drank from her cup, unconcerned with germs or etiquette. His eyes shone amber in firelight, wolf rising near the surface. When conversation lulled, Selena reached into her pocket and pulled 2 scraps of rune paper. She offered one to Ronan, kept one for herself, and set ink beside the fire. It's time, she said softly. Vaughn stoked the fire higher for light, then turned his back with soldierly courtesy. Reese busied himself arranging satchels. Dara traced spirals in the dirt, perhaps a silent blessing. Selena wrote in quick strokes. I will remember your voice if the world falls silent. Ronan wrote slower, letters bold. I will build you a tower from memory and stone if I must. They folded the papers together, placed them on a flat rock inside the ring, and touched fingertip to fingertip. Frost bloomed along Selena's gloves, Heat threaded through Ronan's skin, meeting her ice at the crease between hands. The papers ignited in a pure white flame that produced no smoke and no ashes. Only a swirl of sparks that drifted skyward, vanishing into falling snow. Dara whispered, "Stone accepts your bargain." Selena felt steady, so did Ronan. Kalis and Astra circled them, tails entwined, eyes bright. Night deepened. Vaughn and Dara took first watch. Rhys settled under a blanket, mumbling prayers over salve jars. Ronan and Selena retreated into the narrow lip of the overhang, where a bedroll waited. The cave-mouthed turquoise glow pulsed distantly like a star beneath ice. Selena slid under the wool and linen, Ronan following. Cold seeped from rock, but their bodies warmed the space quickly. He removed her gloves, kissed each knuckle. She kissed the silver braid in his cuff, fingers smoothing a rough skin at his wrist. "This could be goodbye," she whispered. "It is only a pause," he answered. "Our story keeps writing the next line." They undressed each other in silence, broken only by exhaled breaths. No rush, no fear. Every touch remembered the garden, the tower, the laughter of children they loved. Astra curled at Selena's back. Kalis lay along Ronan's spine, keeping the world away. Their lovemaking was slow, reverent, more communion than heat. When they reached the crest, frost flared across Selena's collarbones while warmth pooled deep in Ronan's chest. Opposites married without struggle. They lay tangled afterward, breath sinking, hearts calm. Outside, wind howled but could not pierce the bubble of quiet. Selena traced the copper charm at her braid. "Promise me you'll come back to polish this." He smiled, eyes half-lidded. "Promise you'll plant moonflowers to climb my garden wall." She placed her palm to his sternum. "We meet dawn in strength." Kalis and Astra shimmered together in the dark, then merged, just for a moment, into a single figure, a wolf of silver-gray light with eyes like molten frost. Selena gasped softly. Ronan's arms tightened around her. The merged wolf bowed its head, then dissolved into twin shapes again. Still intertwined, still whole. They slept beneath that blessing. Dreams were gentle, filled with herb beds buzzing with bees and night skies viewed through glass domes. Morning broke in bruised hues, indigo edging into steel. Frost stung nostrils as they dressed. Vaughn extinguished the fire, Rhys packed herbs. Dara ran gloved fingers along stone and whispered, "Doorway here." Then pressed a hidden latch. Ice cracked wide, revealing a passage sloping into the mountain, walls glowing faint turquoise. Horses stayed behind. Jonas's tack cloth draped over saddles. Ronan and Selena shared one last look. No words. Every vow was already breathing between them. They entered single file. Dara first, Selena second, Ronan behind her, then Vaughn and Rhys. The tunnel narrowed, ceiling dripping slow tears of water that froze midair into music glass shards. At each step, the pull on Selena's frost intensified. She swallowed, steadying. Ronan's hand brushed hers now and again, a silent metronome for courage. Deeper walls widened to a chamber of blue ice columns. In the center, a frozen pool pulsed with that same turquoise heart light. Air tasted electric. Selena sensed the weaver's mind just beyond, coiled in the pool's depth. Rhys paused, whispering a quick prayer. Vaughn notched an arrow. Dara tapped the ground, eyes widening. "Hollow underneath," she warned. Selena and Ronan stepped forward, palms touching. Kalis and Astra stood on the pool's rim. Selena drew a breath, 4 counts, and spoke her rune word on the exhale. Frost curled over the pool like a protective skin. Ronan followed, heat seeping beneath ice, forging a layer of bright silver steel. The glow faltered, flickered, but did not die. A whisper slithered through Selena's mind. "You are mine." She gripped Ronan's hand harder. "I belong only to love," she whispered. His answer was a growl under his breath and Kalis's bared fangs. Together they pressed forward, frost and heat spiraling until the pool's light fractured. Cracks raced outward. Ice shattered like glass catching sunlight. The chamber boomed. Cold fire erupted along the ceiling in jagged lines. Vaughn loosed an arrow. It sliced through flame, sputtering sparks. Reese hurled a pouch of moon salt. Crystals burst, extinguishing streaks of blue. Dara slammed a stone spike into the center fissure. Rock answered with a deep groan, like a mountain waking. Selena's frost surged, weaving nets that snared cold fire. Ronan's heat burned bright, sealing caught flames into harmless steam. The turquoise light screamed once, an impossible sound inside every mind, then collapsed inward, sucked into darkness so complete it left the chamber ringing with silence. For a heartbeat, nothing moved. Then the ice columns ceased pulsing. The walls faded to ordinary pale blue. The pool lay still. No glow, no whisper. Selena swayed. Ronan caught her. Kalis and Astra pressed noses together, tails entwined, radiating relief. Vaughn breathed. It's gone. Reese scanned the room, saw no flicker of cursed light. Dara planted her hand on the ground, closed her eyes, and smiled faintly. Stone at rest. Selena met Ronan's eyes. Tears glimmered, not of fear but release. He touched her cheek, thumb brushing moisture. "We won't know how much until we see the moon," he murmured, "but the silence feels honest." They gathered, checked wounds, none serious, then began the ascent. Every step felt lighter, the air clearer. At tunnel's mouth, dawn waited, a sky washed in pure winter gold, clouds drifting like sails. Outside the overhang, horses whickered. Jonas's tack cloth flapped in a breeze that smelled of cedar instead of sulfur. Selena tilted her face to the light. Frost lilies would grow again, she thought, and stars would bloom for towers yet to be built. They mounted, turned toward the distant keep. Snow glittered underhoof, no longer a harbinger, but a promise. Kalis and Astra trotted ahead, tails high, cutting a silver path. Side by side, they followed the silver trail into the waiting dark, love blazing brighter than fear. The Moon Daughter. Chapter 18. Dawn slipped over the ridge in a wash of rose and gold, turning every snowdrift outside Crescent-Fang's gates into heaps of shining opal. Selena and Ronan crested the last rise in silence, cloaks billowing behind their horses. To their left and right rode Vaughn, Reese, and Jonas, faces weary but bright, while Astra and Kalis padded ahead in silver-gray spirit forms, tails lifted, muzzles high. The crisp morning smelled of pine, wood smoke, and something new. Hope perhaps thawing inside every rocky crevice. The first bell of the day rang from the watchtower. Its clear tone carried over the frozen fields, and the gate swung inward on well-oiled hinges. A scatter of children burst through the arch, laughter ringing, fists full of pale blue petals. Selena slowed her mare. Petals, frost flowers, spun through the air in lazy spirals, landing in her hair, dusting the horse's mane, and melting against Ronan's dark cloak. A shout rose from the walls, one voice, then dozens. "They're home! Frost and Fang return!" Elders rang handbells that chimed like quicksilver, a cascade of bright sound that made Ronan laugh under his breath. Selena's eyes stung as horses clopped over the threshold. She'd imagined this moment through the long march back, but reality felt bigger. No longer a hope, but a living roar. Hilda waited first inside the yard, cane planted firm, cheeks wet with tears she pretended not to wipe. Mirren stood to one side, braids threaded with fresh holly, while Corin and Lysa bounced on their toes between them. Behind the front row, villagers packed every step, faces upturned, candles clutched even in daylight. Above it all, frost lilies climbed the keep's walls, curling white petals around stones that had been burned black only days ago. Selena's heart clenched. Her flowers had survived. She swung down from the saddle, letting Vaughn take the reins. Corin rushed forward, wooden sword forgotten against his leg, and launched into her arms. She caught him, staggering back a single step. "You came back," he breathed. "I promised I would," she whispered, "and you kept the walls singing for me." Lysa tugged her cloak, pressing a tiny bell into her palm. "So you always know where home is." Selena tucked the bell into her belt, bent, and kissed the girl's forehead. "I'll keep it close." Hilda tapped her cane twice. "Children, give the protector room to breathe." But she reached for Selena next, drawing her into a surprisingly strong embrace. "You look tired as an empty kettle." "I feel lighter than steam," Selena said, voice shaky. Myron wiped a tear, then smacked Selena's arm lightly. "That's for scaring us, Frost Queen." Selena smiled. "I had help, Frost King included." She glanced at Ronan, who had just dismounted. The crowd quieted instinctively when he stepped forward. He opened his arms and Selena went into them as naturally as drawing breath. Around them, villagers began humming the first bars of a familiar tune. A soft, rising chorus of voices collected under the winter sky. Frost and Fang safe and strong. Love returns where it belongs. Winter passed and shadow waned. Heart and hearth are ours again. Petals floated like snow that dared to be blue. Selena rested her brow to Ronan's chest. His hand slid up her spine, steady and unhurried, and for a long breath nothing existed but the thrum of two hearts and the hymn of home. Kalis lifted his muzzle, releasing a deep rumbling note that wasn't quite a howl, more a sigh of relief large enough to fill the gatehouse. Astra answered with a softer echo, spiraling around children's ankles and between clapping hands before settling at Selena's side. Jonas cleared his throat, trying and failing to hide damp eyes. "Shall we move inside before feet freeze solid?" Reese chuckled. "Says the man who once climbed a glacier barefoot to fetch mountain sage." "That was one time." "Twice," Vaughn corrected, already leading horses toward the stables. Selena pulled back to look at Ronan properly. Tired lines underlined his eyes and streaks of soot still smudged his jaw, but his smile was steady. He lifted a gloved hand to brush stray petals from her braid. The copper charm glinted in the early light. "Ready?" he asked quietly. She nodded. Ilyana appeared through the archway, silver hair loose around her shoulders. "Healing chambers are prepared." Her voice was gentle, but brooked no argument firm. "Both of you." Selena opened her mouth to protest and promptly swayed. Ronan caught her elbow, shooting Ilyana a grateful glance. "Lead the way." They passed through echoing corridors where stone seemed warmer than before. Servants bowed and weavers paused mid-stitch, hands pressed over hearts. The song from the gate still drifted all the way inside, buoyant and sure. Selena felt petals dissolving in her hair, each single drop of cold reminding her she was alive. Inside the healing wing, Reese guided her to a sun-dappled cot. She sank onto the blanket and let boots thud to the floor. Ilyana placed fingertips against Selena's temples. Warmth seeped through skin to bone, easing the throb behind her eyes. Magic thrummed, steady, subtle, woven with the hum of Astra's presence. Ronan refused the next cot, choosing instead to sit on the mattress edge, keeping their hands clasped. Kalis curled at his feet. Astra stretched alongside, their ghostly flanks rising and falling in tandem. Reese pressed an herb poultice to a bruise on Selena's shoulder. Mild swelling, pulse strong. He raised his brow at Ronan. "Your turn." "I'm fine," Ronan said. "That's healer code for Sid Alpha." Selena squeezed his hand. "Humor him." Ronan sighed and rolled up his sleeve. A violet streak wrapped his forearm. Reese applied salve, muttering about stubborn leaders. Selena chuckled, then yawned, a long, shuddering breath she couldn't contain. Ilyana brushed hair from her forehead. "Rest," the healer murmured. "Doors will stay guarded, halls quieted." Selena's lashes fluttered. "Stay," she whispered to Ronan. "Always." He lifted their joined hands to his lips, pressing a kiss to her knuckles. "Home is wherever you breathe." Exhaustion claimed her. She drifted, aware only of the weight of Ronan's hand, the hush of Kalis and Astra, and the distant sound of bells, marking another hour of life outside. When Selena woke, pale afternoon light slanted across lattice windows, painting squares of gold over the cot. Someone had unlaced her cloak and removed Myron's gloves, now folded on a stool. She flexed fingers. No tremor. She turned her head. Ronan sat slumped in a chair beside her, chin on his chest, mouth slightly open. A quiet, resonant snore escaped him. She smiled, heart swelling, and reached to touch his hair. He woke instantly, blinking. "Sorry. I'm loud." "Not loud," she whispered. Comforting. She sat up. Muscles ached, but less than expected. Reese's salve smelled of peppermint and cedar. Outside the window she glimpsed children racing across the courtyard, throwing handfuls of petals at one another, laughter ringing. Ronan stood stretching. "If we don't move now, Hilda will march in with soup and a lecture. I could use both." Selena swung her legs over the side. Astra stirred, sending a ripple of warmth along her ribs. "Thank you for staying." He touched her cheek. "I'd have sat through winter itself." She kissed his palm. "Let's wash away the mountain." They found clothes waiting, soft wool tunics, new trousers stitched by Mirren's apprentice. Selena draped the frost cloak embroidered with Astra's likeness over her arm. The silver thread winked in lamplight. They walked slow halls past tapestries older than their combined fears, nodding to workers polishing sconces, smelling bread rising in hearth ovens. The bathing chamber greeted them with warm steam curling from the froststone tub. Candles dotted every ledge, flames flickering, but steady. Selena inhaled lavender and juniper. Ronan closed the door, the latch clicking like a heartbeat. They undressed without urgency, as if no part of each other was new and yet every reveal a marvel. Selena guided him into the water first. He sank with a sigh. She slid in across from him, knees brushing his hips. The water glowed faintly, her frost reacting to warmth, painting whirls of sapphire light on the stone rim. Ronan reached for the soap, its scent of honey and pine. He lathered slowly, washing dirt from her arms, tracing scars with reverence. When he reached her shoulder, he pressed a kiss to the faint mark left by the weaver's cold flame. She covered his hand with hers, thumb circling his wrist where her leather cuff now rested. "My scars tell stories," she murmured. "Then let me read them," he replied. She leaned forward, washing soot from the hollow of his throat, suds sliding down powerful shoulders. The ease between them was a language beyond words. The way he inhaled when her fingers skimmed his ribs. The soft hum she gave when his thumbs circled moss-brown bruises on her hips. No rush. No fear. Just two hearts cupped in gentle hands. They spoke between pauses of water flicking off skin. "Children threw petals," Selena said. "I caught one. It melted before I could keep it for you. I'd rather have the memory. I'd rather plant their seeds in that garden." They laughed softly. When the water cooled, they rose, droplets running down skin like quicksilver. Ronan retrieved towels warmed by stones near the brazier, wrapping one around Selena first, then himself. She pressed a kiss to the center of his chest where heartbeat pounded, a living drum. He braided a single silver thread, one left over from her hair, in a slim band around a lock behind her ear. She fastened a new leather cuff around his opposite wrist, matching the first. Kalis and Astra ghosted closer, glowing warm. They were 4 heartbeats, yet one. Evening light pooled amber in the village square, illuminating bonfires stacked high. Sparks danced into the gray sky where dusk gathered like velvet. Tables crowded with roasted root vegetables, smoked trout, and freshly baked moon bread. Musicians tuned fiddles, pipes, and drums. Children ran with ribbons trailing like comet tails. Selena and Ronan entered hand in hand to cheers that made the flames flicker. Corin rushed first. "Dance, protector." "I haven't stretched," Selena warned. "I'll teach you." The boy grabbed her hand and launched into a rustic hop, that left her laughing so hard her ribs ached. She managed 3 turns before relinquishing him to Mirren, who swept in with a twirl. Hilda caught Selena next, cane tapping rhythm as they two-stepped around a fire pit. Embers glowed orange on Hilda's lined cheeks. "Living suits you?" Hilda teased. And learning from the best, Selena flicked a gray braid end. Ronan appeared, bowing without irony. "May I?" Hilda relinquished with a wink. Ronan drew Selena into his arms. The musicians shifted to a slow waltz. Lantern light traced their spins, lifting cloak edges. Selena rested her cheek to his shoulder. He whispered the counts in her ear. 1, 2, 3. Then stopped counting when she matched his steps effortlessly. Around them, villagers clapped, cheering each flourish. When the song ended, children lifted a new frost cloak, shimmering with Astra's stitched form along the hem. Lisa fastened it at Selena's throat. "For our Frost Queen," she said grandly. Selena knelt to hug her. "Thank you for stitching courage into every thread." Lisa grinned. "I used extra sparkle." Jonas handed Ronan a frost lantern, a thin ice shell with a candle nestled inside. Selena added a second wick, small but bright. Together they carried it to an open space, touching fingers to the base. Frost spiraled up, sealing a rune of hope. They released it, watching it drift skyward. Dozens of lanterns joined theirs until the twilight looked like a rising constellation. Corin pointed. "That one's yours, Protector." She followed the line of his finger to a lantern glowing pale violet. It hovered over the keep before drifting south, as if blessing every rooftop with gentle light. Night settled deep. Bonfires mellowed to coals. Selena and Ronan slipped away through archways kissed by candlelight. The frost garden lay quiet, snow sparkling under moonrise. The old stone bench waited, dusted with petals. Selena sat, tugging Ronan down beside her and wrapping the new cloak around both of them. "Look," he whispered, pointing to the flower bed by the wall. A single fire bloom, red petal tips edged in gold, pushed through snow, glowing faintly. Selena gasped. "You planted one." "Buried it before we rode out," he said. "Didn't think it'd survive the cold." "Our love keeps warm things alive," she murmured. They sat in silence, breath mingling in clouds. Astra and Kalis lay in the snow a few paces away, tails curled in perfect mirror curves, eyes half shut. Peace radiated from them like heat. Selena curled into Ronan's side. "What do you dream now?" "A greenhouse," he said. "Glass roof, herbs on every shelf, bees sleepy with pollen." "And my tower?" He nodded. "Glass at the top, a bed of cushions, a spyglass to map stars." She smiled. "We'll need stone shapers and carpenters." Kalen offered both, he reminded. They talked until fingers numbed, sharing visions of children chasing snowflies, villages trading frost lily honey, festivals under moonlit glass. Each small dream felt possible now that the shadow had been banished. Later, in their chamber, Ronan collapsed onto the bed with a theatrical groan. "Remind me to stretch next time children challenge my knees." Selena laughed, toeing off boots. "Your knees survived a mountain cave, they can survive a jig." She crawled onto the mattress, pushing him onto his back. He captured her wrists, rolling until she lay beneath him. "One problem with peaceful nights," he murmured, brushing her nose with his. "They leave room for mischief." "Convince me," she dared. He did, slowly, tenderly, with kisses trailing down her neck, laughter muffled in her hair. They teased about who snored louder. She traced maps on his spine, naming star clusters. He kissed the new infinity of curves, shoulder blade, collar, wrist, hip. Their wolves faded into the bond, letting human hearts speak. When they joined, it was quiet and sure, like planting a seed in soft earth, knowing bloom would come. Her frost rolled across his skin in soft sparkles. His warmth seeped into her bones. They moved together unhurried, each sigh an echo of the other. When peace found them, they lay tangled, cloaked in a hush that felt like dawn. Selena pressed her ear to his chest. Your heartbeat sounds different. Louder? Fuller? She yawned. And entirely mine. He smiled drowsily. Then guard it while I sleep. Kalis and Astra glowed warm, curled at their feet. Sleep came like snow, soft, blanketing, and bright. Gray light crept through curtains hours later. Selena slipped from bed, wrapped in Ronan's discarded shirt, and padded barefoot through chilly corridors. Outside, villagers already worked. Hammer strikes echoed where carpenters fixed a gatepost. Children swept petals from stones. A baker set trays of rising dough on open sills. Selena walked until she reached the southern wall. Frost lilies clung here too, petals opening toward pale sun. Her breath caught. Life had claimed every crack of rock. She rested palms to stone, whispered thanks. Footsteps approached. She turned. Ronan carried 2 mugs of steaming tea, hair mussed, eyes still soft with sleep. He handed her one, then leaned beside her on the parapet. Couldn't find you, he said. You did, she answered. They sipped in silence, surveying rooftops, the forest beyond, the smoke curling from chimneys. Snowflakes drifted lazily, catching in Ronan's hair. Selena brushed them away, leaving her fingers there, feeling warmth spread up her arm. What now? She asked. He smiled, eyes crinkling. We build. Astra and Kalis merged behind them, a single shimmering shape before dissolving into the dawn. Selena leaned her head on Ronan's shoulder, heartbeat steady. The village below rang with hammers, laughter, bells. Frost lilies stirred in a gentle breeze, and when the frost bloomed again, it wasn't just survival. It was love taking root. Ronan woke to find Selena sitting cross-legged on the edge of the cot, ankles wrapped in a blanket, hair spilling down her back. A sliver of afternoon sunlight crept across the floorboards toward her bare toes. She was sketching lines on a scrap of ledger paper with a charcoal nub Reese must have left behind. Quick strokes that looked like towers, gardens, and sky-glass domes. Astra lay beside her in a haze of silver light, nose twitching at imaginary pollen. You skipped the best part of napping, Ronan rasped, stretching. I drew the best part of tomorrow. She held up the paper. A tiny wolf charm was scrawled in one corner between 2 frost lilies. Tower, garden, everything we promised. He sat, rubbing the kink from his neck. How's your energy? Like someone replaced my blood with spring water. She rose, wobbling once before steadying. I could walk to the lake and back. I'll settle for the bath chamber. He offered an elbow. She looped her fingers through. Kalis kept pace, spectral toes brushing floor planks without leaving a mark. They passed an open window where the cold smelled faintly of yeast and ash, proof that the bakery's ovens were working overtime for tonight's feast. Steam billowed in the bathing room, clouding mirrors with soft ghosts. Lamps dangled from wrought iron hooks, each flame hooded, so heat wouldn't warp the frost stone. Selena paused at the threshold, watching vapor curl across the high ceiling like lazy dragons. Race you, she whispered and slipped inside. In 20 steps they were both laughing. Boots kicked aside, tunics flung onto a stool. Selena stepped into the water, hissed at the perfect heat, then sighed as it closed over her shoulders. Ronan sank opposite. A bar of honey pine soap floated between them. She nudged it his way. He captured her foot under the water, thumb moving in slow circles around her ankle bone. Tell me what scared you the most out there. She ran the soap along his wrist over the fading shadow of a bruise. The moment I felt the weaver's mind pushing inside mine. It was hollow, like standing at the edge of a frozen cliff and hearing your own voice call from the bottom. His grip tightened but didn't hurt. I felt you recoil. I wanted to tear the mountain down around it. You did, she murmured, sliding forward until their shins brushed. She washed his collarbone, then leaned to kiss it. What scared you? That I'd lose myself to anger again. He drew the soap up the slope of her shoulder. But your frost steadied me. No rage when your voice is near. Water rippled, lantern light dancing on the curved walls. Selena lathered her palms in smoothed suds over the scar where cold fire had grazed his side. He stilled, eyes half closed, the heat turning his cheeks pink. When she rinsed with a cupped splash, he caught her hand, turned it, kissed her damp fingertips. Time thinned. Steam swallowed lamplight until the room felt carved from clouds. They cleaned every scorch and bruise in unhurried silence. Afterward, he kneaded scented oil into her shoulders while she combed soap from his hair. Astra and Kalus curled together near the basin, heads resting on front paws, content to watch. When the water cooled, they rose, toweled each other dry and dressed in fresh wool. A midnight tunic for him, a silver dress for her. Simple and warm. Ronan found a thin strand of silver thread in the easel basket and wove it into her damp hair. Selena tied a soft leather cuff, dyed frost blue, around his wrist, snug next to the cuff from their journey. They match, she said. Like us, he answered, voice low. They left the chamber hand in hand, the wolves gliding behind. Twilight painted the square in citrus colors, orange nearer the bonfires, pink where torches flickered, lavender along the rooflines. Tables groaned under platters of herb-roasted roots, venison pasties, and tiny sugar stars glimmering atop cinnamon buns. Someone had shaped the bonfires into hollow hearts so flames roared inside natural arches. Musicians stood on overturned barrels, tapping strings and drum rims, waiting for the signal. Hilda gave it with a whistle sharp enough to wake the moon. Fiddle and flute jumped to life. Villagers cheered. Selena felt heat glow in her ribs where fear had once nested. Ronan squeezed her hand. Corin approached wearing a new satin sash, toy sword stuck proudly through. Dance with me before Myron steals you. You'll have to lead. She let him guide her into a spinning circle. He counted steps under his breath, tongue poking between teeth. Around them, skirts swished, boots thudded. Frost lilies pinned in braids flashed like falling stars. Hilda shuffled in next, cane tapping lively syncopation. She pulled Selena into a two-step so dramatic, half the crowd hooted. Selena laughed until tears blurred lantern lights. Nearby, Mirren and Vaughn arm-wrestled over whose turn came next while Jonas clapped out rhythms on the table edge. Finally, Ronan slipped through, bowing with exaggerated formality. May I reclaim my mate? Not if you step on her toes, Hilda warned, relinquishing Selena with a pat and limping off. Ronan drew her into a slow tempo that hushed the fiddles. He cradled her right hand, his left warm on the small of her back. Around them, dancers fell into the new rhythm, a languid waltz fit for long winter nights. Selena settled one cheek against his shoulder. Feel that? He whispered. She closed her eyes. The square thrummed like a single heart. Their people laughing, singing, alive. Yes. When the song ended, applause soared. Lysa hurried forward with a cloak folded over her arms, thick white wool lined in pale blue satin, Astra embroidered across the back, tail curling around a silver crescent. Selena knelt so the girl could fasten it. For protecting us, Lysa said, eyes bright. Selena opened the cloak and wrapped Lysa in it too, squeezing. Thank you for reminding me what home feels like. Stars crept across the sky. Lanterns, delicate spheres of frost and glass, were lit one by one. Selena and Ronan stood together beneath a maple stripped bare of leaves. The maple's branches had been draped with soft ribbons in Crescent-Fang's gray and silver. Villagers queued to receive frost lanterns, each engraved with a rune of gratitude. Ronan lifted one for them, flame flickering inside like a captured sunrise. What wish? Selena asked. For new roots, he said. For everything will grow. She pressed her thumbprint in the frost shell next to his and whispered. For towers, under the stars. Together they released the lantern. It bobbed above the bonfire hearts, joined a caravan of lights drifting up the main street over the keep and into the deep violet sky. Children counted until the dots disappeared into night. The revel quieted closer to midnight. Bonfires burned lower. Selena nudged Ronan toward an archway of evergreen and frost lilies. They slipped through side courtyards painted silver by moonrise. When they reached the frost garden, the world narrowed to hush and candle silhouettes. Ronan startled at a new sound, water trickling. Selena pointed. Along the south wall, a copper pipe had been fitted during their absence, channeling meltwater into a shallow stone trough. Someone, perhaps Reese, had carved tiny runes for warmth so the flow never froze. "It'll feed the herb beds," Ronan said, voice husky. Selena knelt beside the trough and dipped her finger into the stream. It was cold but not biting, alive like early spring. "You plant, I water." "We both garden," he corrected, sitting on the stone bench. He drew her into his lap and pulled half the cloak around them both. Moonlight caught on the single fire bloom sprouted near their knees, petals the color of fresh embers cupped a heart of gold stamens. Selena stroked one soft edge. "It survived frost and flame," she murmured. "Like us." His palm warmed her waist. "Like everyone who sings tonight." They sat a long time, swapping quiet stories, a childhood memory of Selena stealing raspberries, Ronan confessing he'd once tried to bake honey scones and turned them into charcoal. She laughed so hard her side hurt. He promised to try again, with her supervision. She promised not to tease if he burned only half. Kalis and Astra dozed nearby, noses buried in warm tails, glowing tails brushing snow into tiny spirals. When a breeze rustled the evergreen arch, the wolves opened their eyes briefly, saw nothing but peace, and drifted back into shared dreams. Snow began falling lightly, whispering on cloak fabric. Selena shivered. Ronan stood, lifting her too. They walked back through corridors lit by half-burned candles, climbing stairs to their room. He opened the door for her like a courtier. She curtsied, sweeping invisible skirts. Inside, embers glowed in the hearth. The quilts had been turned down by some thoughtful hand. Selena faced him, hands slipping under his cloak. "Time for mischief?" "Always." He caught her mouth in a kiss tasting of honey and smoke. She smiled against his lips, unfastened the tie at his throat, and slid the cloak away. They undressed each other slowly, trading jokes. She teased that he snored like a mountain bear. He protested that she talked in her sleep about tower stair geometry. They tumbled onto the mattress, laughter dissolving into sighs. Frost dusted her shoulders where his fingers traced. Warmth gilded his chest where her lips pressed. It was not desperation. It was affirmation. Every touch said, "I'm here." Every breath answered, "I know." When release came, it felt like sliding into sunlight after months of cloud. Selena rested her head on his arm, fingers drawing circles on his sternum. Kalis and Astra fused again, a single radiant wolf standing by the hearth, watching them with gentle eyes before dissolving into moonlight. Ronan brushed knuckles down her cheek. "Tell me your first memory of me." "Your boots," she said, sleepy soft. "I was hiding in the loft and I saw black boots stalking through sawdust. They terrified me." "And now?" "They still terrify me," she teased, kissing his shoulder. "But only when you leave them muddy in the hallway." He laughed low and warm. They drifted to dreams with hands linked over her heart. Gray dawn seeped through curtains. Selena woke to the hiss of parchment sliding against quilt. Ronan was gone only long enough to return with 2 steaming mugs. He nudged her foot. "Walk?" She wrapped herself in his robe, took the tea, steeped strong with cinnamon and mint. Together they padded through halls where sleepy guards saluted. Outside the main gate, snow lay fresh, cleaned of night's footprints. Carpenters hammered new planks onto the northern palisade. On the green, children built a crooked snow wolf, giggling as they patted ice for ears. Selena and Ronan climbed the wall walk. Frost lilies lined crenellations, petals glinting pink as sun breached the horizon. Bells rang for first shift, blacksmith hammers echoed. Bakeries exhaled sweet steam. Crescent-Fang breathed. Selena inhaled, chest expanding. We saved them. We saved each other, Ronan said. She leaned on the wall. We should marry. He choked on tea. She snorted. Properly, I mean, after the tower is built. He wiped his chin, grinning. I was planning to beg on one knee in the garden. But yes, let's marry. Let's write our own ceremony. With frost lilies, she supplied, and honey scones that are either perfect or burned beyond recognition. Both, he agreed. Kalis and Astra shimmered into form behind them, heads tilted, tails slow. Selena reached to scratch Kalis's ears. Ronan stroked Astra's flank. The wolves leaned into the touch, then stepped together and merged into a single being of silver-gray light. It lifted its muzzle toward the sun, releasing a soft tone, neither growl nor howl, but a note of welcome. Hammers halted, voices quieted. Everyone on the green raised eyes toward the wall. The children fell silent. Snowwolf, forgotten. In that hush, the merged wolf bowed once, split again into two, and disappeared. Selena looked at Ronan, tears bright but unfallen. They trust us. So we trust ourselves, he answered, threading his fingers through hers. Below, villagers resumed their tasks, but lighter, as if the wolves had left a glow in the air. Selena squeezed Ronan's hand. They leaned on the parapet, looking beyond rooftops to forests reborn under early sun. And when the frost bloomed again, it wasn't just survival. It was love taking root. Ronan squeezed Selena's hand once more, then steered her down the winding inner stairs. Stone warmed beneath their boots where morning light had already soaked in. By the time they reached the ground, villagers were hauling fresh beams toward the north gate. Jonas strode alongside two carpenters, sleeves rolled to his elbows, pointing to cracks in a brace, while Vaughn balanced a stack of new arrow shafts under one arm. Jonas spotted them and waved. Morning patrol found nothing worse than wandering rabbits, he said, voice carrying his first true hint of relaxation in weeks. Give those rabbits fair warning, Ronan called back. Already posted. Vaughn grinned, hefting the shafts. We won't need these for a while, but I promised Corin we'd practice anyway. Corin himself dashed across the yard, wooden sword tucked into a belt that was clearly Myron's handiwork, too large, but proudly worn. He halted beneath Selena and Ronan's perch on the steps. Can we plant seeds today? He asked, hair bursting from under a knitted cap. Myron says the soil still sleeps, but you said frost lilies know warmth even in ice. Selena crouched. Late frost lilies do, but firebloom seedlings need deeper sun. We'll start them indoors in clay pots first. Ronan ruffled Corin's cap. Fetch 2 medium pots from the glass house. Meet us at the frost garden when the sun reaches the bell tower roof. Corin saluted with the wooden sword and tore off so fast his boots slipped. Lysa emerged from behind a stack of planks, waving a kid-sized hammer. She giggled at Corin's wobble, then ran after him. Selena watched them go, emotions tugging tight at her chest. Ronan felt it too. His hand settled at the small of her back. Seeing them run without fear, she whispered. It is the garden we fought for, he replied. They lingered long enough to help Myron tie a new banister ribbon, glittered gray silk, around the repaired front steps, then made their way to the frost garden gate. Inside the walled space, frost lilies nodded under soft light darting through bare branches. The single fire bloom had opened wider, red petals glowing like a coal in the snow. Ilyana stood near the new water trough, tracing runes along the copper pipe. Reese helped her anchor a small obsidian basin beneath the spout. Reese dusted frost off his hands. Moving meltwater directly into the herb beds will help thaw pockets of soil safely. Ilyana claims it soothes the land. Soothes me as well, Selena said, offering Ilyana a grateful smile. Ilyana bowed her head. Peace takes as much skill as war. You two will need to practice both. Plenty of practice ahead, Ronan agreed, guiding Selena to the stone bench. Ilyana and Reese moved off, discussing seed mixes. Selena settled onto the bench. The new cloak puddled around her feet, embroidery shimmering. Ronan sat close, slipped his arm behind her, pressing their sides together. "Last night didn't feel real," she murmured. "Almost like a memory I dreamed. If it was a dream, it's the first that smells of roasted carrots." He chuckled. "I will never forget Vaughn drumming a spoon on my cup like a bell. Or Hilda outdancing the guards." She laughed softly. "She's unstoppable." Ronan tipped his head back, breathing cold air deep. "Tell me what you drew this morning." She unfolded the charcoal sketch she had tucked into her pocket. "Tower, here." She pointed at a soaring silhouette topped with a glass dome. "Garden terraces on the south side. You see this?" She tapped an oval patch with tiny dots. "The children's greenhouse. Lysa's frost herbs, Corin's sun peppers." Ronan traced the lines with a finger. "You forgot the library." "That's because you promised to plan it," she teased. He took the charcoal stub from her, added a wing sprouting off the tower like a shield. Inside, he drew long vertical rectangles, windows, and a tiny wolf paw print in one. "That's Kalis's reading nook," he said, "with a rug because stone makes him grumble." Astra patted over, nose touching the paper. Selena scratched behind the spirit ear. "Astra approves fire bloom vines along the railings." "Agreed." Ronan breathed quieter. "And at the very top, a bell of copper. Not for alarms, only to ring when new plants bloom." "For every bloom?" "For every moment we choose joy." Selena's throat thickened. She leaned forward and pressed a kiss to his cheek. "Then the sky will learn to listen." Footsteps crunched behind them. Corin, Lysa, and Mirren filed in, arms full, 2 clay pots, a small sack of loam, and a bundle of delicate shootlings wrapped in damp linen. Mirren laid everything out on a low stone table. Lisa produced 3 slender seed packets. Hilda found these behind the apothecary, saffron snowdrops. Selena's eyebrows lifted. "Rare and finicky." "Finicky like Vaughn before coffee," Mirren quipped, drawing chuckles. Ronan gestured. "Let's plant the firebloom seedlings in the larger pot. Corin, you hold the stem steady. Lisa, sprinkle soil around the roots. Gentle." Selena knelt to guide them. Corin's tongue stuck out in concentration as he cradled the fragile sprout. Lysa's small fingers drizzled earth with surprising precision. Astra and Kylas watched from a respectful distance, tails flicking contentedly. When the seedling stood upright, Selena breathed a soft frost breath over the soil, sealing moisture without freezing. The dirt glittered faintly, a microcosm of spring within winter. Mirren wiped her palms. "It needs a name." Corin looked to Selena. "Name it Hope?" "Hope's good," she said, "because it burns bright and doesn't quit." They all echoed the name with quiet pride. Ronan rose, dusting his knees. "We'll build a glass roof for the garden wing soon. Until then, the library window light should suffice." Mirren winked. "One more reason to finish drafting that tower." Selena pocketed the sketch. "We should prepare for tonight's council circle." She sighed. "Brief as it will be, it's mostly Jonas insisting we sleep." "We can spare 15 minutes, Ronan said. "Seeds first, speeches second." A snowflake drifted between them, landing on Ronan's cuff. Selena brushed it away. "Race you back to the square?" "You're on," he said, but slowed to ensure she stayed steady. They jogged, laughing, until breath clouded air and cheeks burned pleasantly. At the square's edge, Selena faked a stumble. Ronan caught her, both of them breathless, then kissed her quick and hard. Lysa shrieked giggles behind them. The council circle convened in the old war chamber, though its mood had transformed. Instead of strongholds and siege plans, the table held parchment lists of roof repairs and recipes for winter hardy greens. Jonas presided with a relaxed posture, but his eyes tracked every note diligently. Vaughn leaned over a crude drawing of newly designed frost arrowheads, smaller, decorative, meant for ceremonial archery displays rather than battles. Reese reviewed healer rotations, fewer by the day. Ileana sipped tea brewed with moonbud petals, reading quietly. Selena and Ronan slipped into seats side by side. Kalis and Astra lay at their feet, heads on paws. Jonas cleared his throat. First order, assigning carpenters to the new greenhouse extension. Myron's apprentices volunteered to frame the glass once the metal smiths finished supports. Materials? Silver Ridge shipments arrive at dawn, Ronan answered. Kalen included tempered glass panels. Selena added. Riverstone Gardener sent a bag of water willow seeds, extremely rare. We'll need shallow troughs warmed from beneath. Reese tapped his notes. We can redirect a bit of the water heating runes once the apothecary alcove is done. They progressed through topics swiftly. Each decision was punctuated by small smiles rather than tense nods. The final note belonged to Jonas. One more item, he said, clearing his throat. We'd like to host a midsummer festival, a proper one. No curses, no alarms, just food, games, and perhaps a reading from the new Protector's Library. He glanced towards Selena. Her eyes widened. A library that doesn't yet exist. We'll help stock it, Vaughn declared, producing a battered field journal. First donation, Reese's herbal notes. Reese can't refuse. I already inscribed his name on the cover. Reese flushed but rolled his eyes fondly. Fine, but no one mocks my handwriting. Selena felt her chest swell as she accepted the journal, fingers brushing worn pages. I'll guard it like a flame. Jonas stood. Meeting adjourned before the kitchen's revolt. They filtered out. Selena and Ronan lagged behind, collecting a stack of loose parchment. Kalis and Astra led the way toward their tower stair, the long spiral climb to chambers lit by moonlight through narrow slits. Inside, the hearth glowed low. Selena set the stack of papers beside a candle and turned to find Ronan watching her beneath heavy lids. Tired? She asked. In the softest way, he said, like lying under fresh snow and hearing the world quiet. Let's make sure it stays quiet. She tugged him toward the bed. They slid beneath blankets tangled with feather pillows. Her cloak slipped off her shoulders. His tunic followed, landing on the floor with a hushed sigh. They faced each other close enough that breath warmed lips. You snored, she accused gently. You drooled, he countered. Did not. He brushed his thumb across her lower lip. Only a little. She laughed, burying her face against his throat. You smell like pine. Soap, I'll stink of soil once the garden begin. I'll still love you. Even when I fall off a ladder building your tower. She pretended to think. You'd better fall into soft shrubs. He traced her spine. Soft shrubs it is. They kissed slow and sure. Her frost tingled, not racing, simply breathing with him. His warmth met it halfway, gentle waves rolling beneath the skin. They moved together like a lullaby, bodies familiar yet always new. When pleasure built, it was deep and silent, a quiet current carrying them toward a shore they already knew. After, her head lay on his arm, his fingers threaded through her hair. I could stay in this moment forever, she whispered. Then time will have to ask permission, he murmured. Astra and Kayla settled at the foot of the bed, tails overlapping. Candlelight etched faint halos around them before dimming as the flame burned low. First daylight found Selena awake, comforter tucked under her chin. She freed herself carefully, not wanting to disturb Ronan's steady breathing. A weak sunbeam slid across his bare shoulder. She brushed it with a finger, smiling, then rose. She dressed quietly, pulled on boots and draped the frost cloak over her shoulders. Outside, the halls whispered with early footsteps. She nodded to a young guard polishing helm rivets and descended to the courtyard. Snow had stopped in the night, replaced by the hush of crisp air ready to warm. Villagers were already hauling stones for new walls, cartwheels squeaking. A pair of weavers hung bright cloth banners from the bakery roof, the colors of every allied pack. Silver Ridge slate, Riverstone teal, Thornpine russet, Crescent-Fang gray. Selena turned a slow circle, absorbing it. Hammer strikes rang, steady, confident. Children carried baskets of thawed earth to fill flower beds. The world she had only imagined now unfurled before her eyes. She walked along the wall until she saw Jonas kneeling beside a wagon axle, tightening bolts. He lifted a hand in greeting. She waved back, then moved on, following the outer walkway. At the south parapet, she stopped. Frost lilies glittered along the edge, each petal sparkling in dawn's pale gold. She leaned down, kissed one bloom. "Thank you," she whispered. Footsteps clinked on stone. She straightened to find Ronan approaching, hair wind-ruffled, 2 steaming mugs in hand. He pressed one into hers. "Chamomile and clover," she guessed. "Plus a taste of honey," he said, kissing her temple. They faced east, looking toward distant ridges softened by snow haze. Light spread, painting the sky peach, then rose, then brightening into pure day. Ronan's voice was quiet. "I dreamed our tower last night. You were reading by starlight. Kalis and Astra slept on a balcony garden. Bees hummed in moonflowers." Selena smiled, sipping tea. "We'll need a big door for bees. We'll need a guest wing for Lysa's frost choir. And a treasury for Corin's wooden swords," she added with a grin. He chuckled, setting his mug on the parapet to pull her into his arms. She felt his heart beat through layers of wool and leather. He buried his nose in her hair, exhaling softly. "Ready?" he whispered. "Always," she answered. They stood there, side by side, as the sunlight climbed over rooftops and kiss of warmth chased last night's chill along the walls. Below, laughter began again, echoing through the keep. Work songs rose. The bakery bell chimed. A hammer struck the first nail into new wood. Selena squeezed Ronan's hand. He squeezed back. And when the frost bloomed again, it wasn't just survival. It was love taking root. The Moondaughter. Chapter 19. Frost whispered across the garden paths as villagers filed between the beds, each person carrying a pouch of dark, sweet-smelling soil. The low winter sun caught on the frost lily petals that curled along every wall, scattering light like shaken pearls. In the center clearing, the lone fire bloom that had survived ice and flame stood taller than before, red petals spreading like a slow sunrise. Children circled it in reverent silence while elders placed handbells on flat stones to either side. The bells chimed softly when the wind touched them, as if approving the hush. Selena and Ronan approached together, boots crunching on fresh snow. Kalis and Astra padded ghost-like at their flanks, stopping at the edge of the circle. The villagers parted without a word, creating an aisle straight to the flower. Selena's throat tightened at the sight of Hilda near the front, Mirren beside her with Corin on one hip, and Lysa holding a basket of seeds. Behind them stood Jonas, Vaughn, Reese, and Ileana, each with an expression that mixed pride and peace. Selena's palm found Ronan's, his fingers laced through hers, warm and steady. They stepped into the ring. A hush swept wider, as if even the stones paused to listen. Ronan faced the gathered crowd. "Today we give this garden a true name," he said, voice roughened by emotion, but clear. "We fought in its shadow. We bled within its walls. We healed beneath its frost. Now it grows because love took root." Selena lifted her other hand. This fire bloom survived when everything else burned. From this day on, it is heartroot, a promise that what begins in hardship can end in hope. Children gasped in delight at the name. Bells chimed twice, bright and sure. Corin wriggled free of Mirren and hurried forward with a small trowel. Lysa followed, clutching her basket. Selena knelt, cloak puddling, and used the trowel to scoop a shallow trench around Heartroot's base. Lysa sprinkled a mix of fire bloom and frost lily seeds into the earth. Snowflakes drifted but melted before touching dirt, as if even winter was unwilling to disturb the moment. Selena pressed her fingertips to the soil. A breath of gentle frost sealed the seeds in a glimmering sheath, enough to keep them safe until proper warmth returned. When she rose, Ronan reached into his pocket and drew out a pendant. A clear quartz vial smaller than her thumb hung on a delicate silver chain. Inside lay 2 seeds, one obsidian black, one pale as first light. He spoke softly so only she could hear. A frost lily and a fire bloom, carried close to your heart until the day we plant them together. Her eyes stung. She bowed her head while he clasped the chain around her neck. The vial settled against her sternum, cool and full of promise. She covered it with her hand and whispered, "I vow to guard them as I guard us." Astra pulsed with gentle warmth. Kalis answered with a contented rumble that rippled through every watching soul. Hilda raised her cane like a scepter. "Let the bells keep this vow." Elders shook their handbells once, twice, 3 times. The clear notes carried across rooftops, drawing smiles from workers on distant scaffolds. Selena turned to Ronan. "You gave me seeds, let me give you soil." She reached down, scooped a handful of the earth that ringed heartroot, and pressed it into his palm. "Carry this where you tread. Remember why we build." His fist closed around it. With every step, he leaned in, brushed her forehead with a kiss so light it could have been breath. Applause spread in ripples, soft, heartfelt, unhurried. Children scattered to plant their own seed pouches along pathways while elders strung new frost lanterns on cedar poles. Jonas began directing volunteers to lay fresh gravel, and Vaughn organized a line for watering cans. The garden shifted from sacred stillness to living bustle, but the ring around Heartroot remained untouched, shimmering with promise. Selena and Ronan slipped away down the path leading to the tower. Snow squeaked beneath their boots. Kalis and Astra followed so closely their spectral fur brushed the couple's shadows. Halfway up the spiral stair, Selena stopped, catching her breath. Ronan frowned in concern, but she lifted a hand. "Not tired. Happy," she said, laughing softly at how her chest felt too full. "It might overflow before we reach the top." "Then let it." He kissed the crown of her head, guiding her onward. Their highest chamber smelled faintly of lavender from the herbs Reese had tucked under the pillows. Morning sunlight streamed through narrow panes, illuminating parchment rolls stacked on the desk. 2 blank sheets lay side by side, weighed by an inkpot and 2 trimmed quills. Someone, Myron likely, had placed a plate of honey scones beside them, still warm. Ronan shut the door against drafty hall air, then crossed to the desk and read aloud the note pinned under the plate. "Write legacy letters," he said, brow lifting. "Mirren's handwriting." Selena removed her cloak, draped it over a chair. "She loves an opportunity for sentiment. And biscuits." She broke a scone, offered half to Ronan. They sat, parchment before them. Kalis settled beneath Ronan's chair. Astra curled at Selena's feet, a circle of quiet radiance. Selena twirled the quill, but did not yet write. Ink smelled metallic and alive. "What do we say to a future we haven't met?" she asked, voice low. "Anything we wish we'd heard when the nights were darkest," he answered, already dipping quill to ink. Selena considered, then she began. "I once believed survival was enough, that breathing through another dawn meant I'd lived. But love turned breath into song, and song into life worth keeping." She paused, blinked away wetness as the words blurred. Across the desk, Ronan wrote slowly, jaw tense. The only sound was quills scratching and the occasional pop from the hearth. She wrote of frost magic, of fear turned to purpose, of community cradling her thawing heart. She confessed that the first time Ronan touched her without flinching, she felt something melt beneath her ribs that no winter could reclaim. She wrote that power meant nothing next to laughter shared over burned pastries. When she finished, the parchment was speckled where tears had fallen, but the ink did not run. Her frost kept it crisp. She folded the paper and tied it with a length of silver thread, Ronan folded his own and slid it across. "Read mine," he said, voice husky. "Only if you read mine," she countered. They traded documents and opened them. Ronan's hand-drawn script filled the page. Selena scanned the lines, breath-catching. He wrote that meeting her changed every measure of strength he'd known, that power without love had once made him fear himself. He wrote of nights listening to her heartbeat steady his wolf, of dreams shapeless until she gave them names: garden, tower, joy. He ended with a vow. May the bearer of this letter plant seeds where fear once grew. She looked up, eyes shining. Ronan held her letter to his chest as if anchoring it inside. He rose and walked around the desk. She stood to meet him. Quills rolled unnoticed to the floor. "I'm not sure I deserve the words you've given me," he said, voice thick. "You made them true," she answered, slipping arms around his waist. They held each other until trembling eased. Astra's head rested on Kalis's back. The wolves breathed as one. After a time, Ronan cleared his throat. "We should seal them." He retrieved 2 crimson wax beads from a drawer, melted them over a candle, and pressed the imprints of their intertwined wolves into the soft pools. Their letters now bore the same seal, proof that 2 voices spoke as one. Selena slipped the letters into a small lockbox. "To the library vault tomorrow." She brushed wax flecks from her fingertips. "But for now, let's eat before the scones lose their courage." They lounged by the hearth, sharing honey-sweet bites, laughing when crumbs dotted Ronan's tunic. He flicked one at her. She retaliated with a dab of marmalade on his nose. Kalis and Astra watched with amused calm, tails thumping softly. When the plate emptied, Selena rose, smoothing her skirt. "We promised to join the picnic at moonrise." Ronan tapped the pendant on her chest. "Heartroot will miss us if we're late." They packed a small basket, her idea to bring extra jam jars, his to include 2 bottles of berry cider, and descended the tower stairs together, feeling lighter with every step. In the courtyard, strings of lanterns crisscrossed overhead, their frosted panels catching the early stars. Lisa darted past carrying a stack of tin plates, narrowly avoiding Vaughn, who balanced a barrel of cider on one shoulder. Hilda presided near a fire pit, spoon in hand, orchestrating the placement of blankets. Myron waved them over to a wide quilt already laden with bread and spinach pies. Selena set the jam in the center. Lisa dug in a pouch and produced silver spoons. "Permission to dig first?" Lisa asked. "Permission granted," Selena laughed, lifting her hands in surrender. Corin raced in next, dropping 3 folded paper stars into Selena's lap. "For the library ceiling," he declared. "Glow moss on the inside." Ronan raised a brow. "Ambitious." "We have months," Corin insisted. "The boy's unstoppable," Reese said, lounging on one elbow beside a lantern. Jonas approached, hair tousled by the breeze. "We're short a fiddle. Any volunteers?" Hilda jabbed her spoon at him. "I'll stomp time, you just hum." The music started low, one flute weaving through a gentle melody. Selena poured cider, passing mugs down the quilt. Ronan tore bread, handed pieces to Myron and Vaughn. Astra and Kalis prowled the perimeter, greeting children with soft rubs of spirit fur that left their hair shimmering with harmless frost. As the sky darkened, more lanterns climbed, tethered to paper ribbon tails. One drifted close enough that Selena saw her own reflection warped in the ice. She leaned against Ronan's side, resting head on his shoulder. "We belong here," she murmured. "We make here belong to us," he corrected, kissing her temple. Food dwindled. Music eased into humming. Villagers lay on blankets pointing out constellations. Selena traced one with her finger in the air. "That cluster looks like a wolf howling." "Or 2 wolves fused," Ronan whispered. A hush settled. Selena's palm brushed her belly through the soft fabric of her dress, a gesture so small she barely noticed it until Ronan's hand slid gently over hers. She looked up to find his gaze locked on her, amber eyes softening into reverence. No words passed. Tears welled in his lashes, reflecting lantern light. Astra pressed nose to Selena's lap, tail sweeping. Kalis leaned into Ronan's calf, a rumble of unbridled joy vibrating the air. Ronan dropped to both knees, still holding her hand. He bowed his head and exhaled a shaky breath. She threaded fingers through his hair. "I felt it," he breathed. "Kalis felt it. I didn't dare—" Selena's other hand curved around his cheek. "Hope lives," she whispered. Voices at other blankets kept laughing and telling stories, unaware of the miracle unfolding in the soft circle of lantern light. Ronan pressed a kiss to her palm, then pressed his ear to her abdomen, as if listening for a secret melody. Selena's eyes filled, but she managed a laugh. "Too soon for kick," she murmured. "Still music," he said. He rose, sat beside her again, arms wrapping around her from behind. They watched lanterns drift upward, souls lighter than air. Later, Mirren gathered blankets. Jonas doused fire pits. Vaughn hoisted the cider barrel and called goodnights. Selena and Ronan lingered last, packing their basket. Ronan slung it over his shoulder while Selena stroked the fire blooms, petals, and passing. "You'll have company soon," she whispered to the plant. Kalis and Astra flanked them on the moonlit path to the tower. Inside their chamber, the hearth awaited, fed by someone thoughtful. Ronan set the basket aside and pulled Selena close, forehead to hers. "Star lesson?" he asked. She nodded. They lay on the soft rug before the fire, limbs entangled. Ronan pointed to the invisible ceiling, drawing shapes on her skin. "This one is Garden's Rest," he said, trailing fingers across her shoulder blade. "That one is Lover's Promise," tracing her collarbone. She swirled patterns across his ribs, naming blooms and vines. Their clothes found the floor again, footsteps muffled. They moved together in a hush of blankets and soft sighs, a dance with no urgency, only truth. Kalis and Astra curled nearby, glowing like banked embers. Later, wrapped in one blanket, Selena brushed her nose against Ronan's. "Tomorrow we start sketches for the library vault." "And the greenhouse troughs," he agreed, eyes half-lidded with contentment. "Then another naming ceremony, one just for us," she teased, palm gliding to her belly. He covered her hand with both of his. "We'll name more flowers than we can count." "You'll run out of names, Ger. Then we'll make new ones." Sleep drifted in slow waves, carrying them into dreams of humming bees and moonlit towers. When dawn kissed the horizon, a pale blossom unfurled on a vine outside their window, white petals edged in pink, first bloom of spring. Selena stirred, waking Ronan with a gentle nudge. They rose, threw on robes, and walked barefoot through the quiet keep to the garden. Frost crackled underfoot but did not bite. The new blossom greeted them from a once-dead vine, opening wider with each breath of morning. Selena touched its petal. Ronan wrapped his arm around her waist. Behind them, Kalis and Astra appeared, their forms merging briefly into one radiant silhouette before separating again, golden light pulsing between. Snow glittered. Bells tolled distant and soft. Selena leaned into Ronan's side, heart steady. And when the frost bloomed again, it wasn't just survival, it was love taking root. Selena shifted the quilt basket higher on her hip, balancing it against a small jar of rhubarb jam, while Ronan hoisted 2 wooden lantern poles to his shoulder. Kalis and Astra loped ahead of them in twin flashes of muted silver, sending little flurries of snow ahead of their paws. Afternoon sunlight had already slipped behind the ridge, dyeing the sky a bruise purple that promised clear stars. Everywhere they looked, Crescent-Fang was alive with gentle bustle. Children darting between fire pits with armfuls of kindling. Jonas directing the stringing of lanterns from birch trunk to birch trunk. Vaughn coaxing a fiddle from Myron's reluctant apprentice and threatening playful doom on any tune with fewer than 3 happy notes. "Food first, light second, dancing third," Hilda called, cane swinging like an orchestra baton from her seat on a barrel. "If any stew touches that quilt before prayer, I'll tan more than hide." Ronan chuckled as they stepped into the frost garden. The once battle-scarred beds were cleaned and fluffed, ready to host blankets. Fires glowed in iron braziers along the paths, turning snowbanks to orange glitter. A low hum of conversation blended with crackling wood, weaving a peace Selena could feel in her teeth. "Blanket corner over there," Mirren called. She pointed to an open patch of frosted grass right beside Heartroot. Lantern glow gilded the flower's red petals, now taller than Selena's waist. Snow dusted its leaves like sugar on berry tarts. Selena knelt and spread the quilt. Lisa darted up, plunking a plate of cinnamon-sweet nutcakes in the center. "I rescued them from Reese," she announced. "He said they're too spicy for children, so obviously they're perfect." Corin followed, juggling 2 mugs of mulled cider. "Message from Vaughn. If you don't save him a nutcake, he'll report you to the Frost Queen." Selena winked. "The Frost Queen approves cake thievery tonight." The children beamed and scampered off. Ronan set the lantern poles at the quilt's corners, lighting them with a gentle breath of heat. Warm amber spilled over the basket of jam jars and the folded wool wraps Selena had packed. Kayla settled onto the snow beside the quilt, tail curling neatly around paws. Astra lay across from him, their eyes mirrors of calm. Mirren plopped onto the blanket with a sigh, her cheeks already pink from fire heat. "I told Jonas to stop hauling tables, but he refuses to sit until every lantern's straight." "Leadership habits die hard," Selena said, pulling a jar of jam behind the nutcake plate. Hilda joined them, lowering herself gracefully despite stiff knees. Ridiculous. Nobody ever looked at a crooked lantern and thought, well, guess I can't love tonight. She accepted Ronan's offered cider and clinked mugs with him in thanks. Across the garden, music gathered shape. Vaughn on fiddle, Jonas, lanterns finally deemed worthy, tapping a small hand drum, Reese singing a warm baritone line. Other voices joined, and soon the air trembled with an old winter lullaby, gentle and rhythmic, more hush than cheer. People drifted toward Heartroot, armed with pies and stew bowls, smiling at one another as if trying on joy like new coats. Selena sat cross-legged, tugging Ronan down beside her. He removed leather gloves, pouring cider for them both. Their shoulders brushed. She felt how loose his back had become. All the usual tension melted. Astra shifted closer, head resting on Kalis's paws, a soundless sigh settling into the snow. Corin plopped onto the edge of the blanket holding a battered book. "Selena, Mirren says you know the poem for the first star. Can you read it before dinner?" Selena raised an eyebrow at Mirren, who shrugged innocently. "All right," she said, accepting the ragged volume. She cleared her throat. "First star rises, snow hush falls, a breath of frost in moonlit halls. Speak your wish and keep it true, a star will carry it home to you." The words were simple, but the hush that followed felt sacred. Lisa pressed her palms together, whispered into them, then blew the wish toward the darkening sky. "What did you ask for?" Mirren teased. "More nutcakes," Lisa said without hesitation. Laughter rippled across nearby blankets. Lanterns kindled one by one, their crystalline shells turning the yard into a field of tiny suns. Still, Selena and Ronan stayed in their soft pocket of lamplight, sharing cider and passing plates. He pulled her cloak edge over his lap when a breeze fluttered by, and she pretended not to see when his fingers lingered on her knee longer than necessary. "You're staring," she murmured after a stretch of comfortable silence. "Cataloging freckles," he said. "Winter freckles are rare. You missed one." She pointed to a faint dot above his lip. He crossed his eyes, trying to see it, and she laughed softly. Jonas arrived, dropping cross-legged across from them. Finally sat down. Selena teased. "Fiddle strings needed my drumming to behave," he replied. He produced a covered bowl and lifted the lid to reveal slow-cooked venison stew. "Vaughn says it's medicinal." "That's because he put 3 kinds of pepper in it," Mirren said, waving steam away. Selena scooped portions into wooden bowls. The scent of rosemary and juniper filled her lungs. She tasted, humming approval as warmth spread to her fingertips. Ronan raised his spoon, then paused. eyes narrowing at the sky. Lanterns, he noted. They're forming a line. Selena followed his gaze. The wind had shepherded dozens of glowing globes into a slow drift east, a luminous ribbon stretching toward the horizon. Sending hope out, she mused, like bees taking pollen. They'll see it in Thornpine before sunrise, Jonas said around a mouthful of bread. Hilda tapped her cane. Hope has wings, better use them. As music shifted to a brisk reel, Corin leaped up, tugging Lysa into a spin. Mirren hoisted herself with a mock groan to dance with them. Jonas slapped his knees in time. Selena laughed as Lysa's ribboned braids whipped like comet tails. When the reel slowed, Ronan nudged Selena's shoulder. Join me? His eyes shone amber in the lantern glow. She hesitated, hand drifting to the small pendant at her chest. Lead gently, she teased. I always do. He stood, offered his hand. She placed her fingers in his and allowed him to guide her onto the open path between blankets. The music swelled again, slower now. A waltz spun of low fiddle hum and soft drum. Ronan's right hand settled on the small of her back. She rested her left on his shoulder. They began to sway, steps small and even, keeping perfect time with the heartbeat rhythm. Around them, villagers dimmed lanterns, letting starlight share the dance floor. Selena tipped her head back. The night stretched clean and cold overhead, every star a pinprick of silver. She remembered tracing constellations on parchment as a girl, dreaming of names she might earn. Now she thought her name was simply a sigh on Ronan's lips. You're trembling, he whispered, only with happiness. She let her forehead rest against his. Their breath mingled, warm clouds painted by the lantern light. Kalis and Astra circled the ring, their spirit paws leaving faint prints that shimmered and vanished. Do you hear them? She murmured. Always. Ronan breathed. They're singing. She realized he was right. Beneath the music and rustle of cloaks, she could feel a hum in her bones, low, steady, like a lullaby plucked on invisible strings. It wasn't sound, not exactly. It was the feeling of being anchored by love so deep it sang. Ronan spun her slowly, then drew her close again, his hand settling lightly at her waist. Lysa giggled somewhere behind them. Corin whooped. Vaughn missed a note and laughed aloud. Heartroot flickered red in the corner of her eye. She leaned back just enough to look fully at Ronan. I've never felt more home, she said, voice so soft only he could hear. Nor I, he answered. They finished the dance tucked together, letting the last chord of the fiddle fade. Applause rose gentle as snow. Selena dipped a small curtsy. Ronan gave a half bow, eyes never leaving her. Then the spell of performance broke into chatter. Hilda tapped Selena's elbow, offering a small linen bundle. Fennel biscuits from the south ovens. Stow them before the children raid. Thank you, Selena said, tucking them into the basket. Jonas fetched more cider. Vaughn stole Mirren's cloak for dramatic ballroom twirls. The garden glowed with contentment so tangible it felt like warm silk against the skin. When plates emptied and mugs cooled, villagers began drifting away, extinguishing lanterns one by one. Selena's blanket group lingered last. Lisa curled up under Mirren's cloak, half asleep. Corin rested his head on Jonas's knee, still clutching a wooden sword. Vaughn plucked a subdued lullaby on the fiddle. Selena and Ronan exchanged a glance. Time to carry little ones to bed. They rose, gathering dishes. Under the guise of stretching, Selena touched the smooth vial against her chest. 2 seeds tapped faintly against glass. As they said quiet goodbyes and promises of breakfast bread, Corin roused enough to hug Selena's waist. I'll check on Heartroot at dawn, he mumbled. It will be waiting, she assured. They left the garden wrapped in outer cloaks to block the wind off the northern ridge. Lantern poles flickered out behind them, but Heartroot glowed faintly red, casting a comfort light as if it understood the call of dreams. Kalis and Astra trotted ahead, pausing at the tower stairs. Selena's pulse quickened, part with chill, part with new truth in her belly. She placed her hand over it, feeling only warmth. She kept it there as they mounted each step. Inside their chamber, a single candle burned on the table by the narrow window. Ronan set the empty basket down, secured the latch against wind. Selena slipped off her cloak, breathing in the faint scent of pine that always clung to him. He crossed to her, framed by fire glow. Wordless, she took his hand and pressed it gently against her stomach. He stilled. The world stilled. Kailas and Astra lowered themselves, heads tilted, ears alert. For long moments they exchanged nothing but breath. Ronan's eyes shimmered. He dipped his head, resting forehead to hers. "Life?" he asked, the word almost prayer. "Life," she echoed. He exhaled a trembling laugh, pulled her against him, arms wide and sure. She felt him swallow, felt the way his chest shook with held-back tears. Her own tears slipped free, soaking his collar. Neither moved to wipe them away. Kailas rose, stepping forward to nuzzle Ronan's hip. Astra pressed her nose against Selena's abdomen, a quiet blessing of warmth and protection. Energy sparked where ghost fur brushed fabric, a tiny flare of silver light that faded sweetly. Ronan kissed Selena's hair, her temple, her cheeks. "I hoped," he whispered. "I dreamed. I didn't dare ask. I wanted to tell you when we were too full of joy to fear," she murmured. "Tonight felt right." He drew back to look at her, hands framing her face. "Thank you," he said, reverent. "For what?" "For choosing to live. For choosing me. For choosing us." She covered his hands with hers, leaning into the touch. "You taught me that living could be more than surviving." He smiled, eyes crinkling. "Then let's teach our child the same." She nuzzled his nose. "We should sleep. Morning comes quickly." "Morning is patient," he answered and kissed her softly. They changed into linens, breath frosty until the hearth's flame grew bright. Ronan lay on his side, propping his head on one hand. Selena settled against him, her belly tucked into the crook of his hips. His hand spread across the faint curve. "Stars later?" he asked. "Always." They drifted, cradled by wolves who watched like quiet guardians on a threshold to dreams. Hours before dawn, frost glittered at the window ledge. Selena woke of her own accord, Ronan's hand still resting on her abdomen. She eased from the bed, slipping into a wool robe, and padded barefoot to the window. A soft blush of light rimmed the horizon. She lifted the latch gently and opened the pane. A breath of crisp air carried the scent of newly burned wood and distant bread. She let it kiss her cheeks. Below, heartroot's petals glowed a deeper crimson than night had allowed. Behind her, Ronan stirred. She turned. He rubbed sleep from his eyes and opened an arm in invitation. She crossed the room and nestled against him. His hand cradled her head, fingers playing with loose strands of hair. "You were talking in your sleep," she teased softly. "Was I threatening anyone?" "No. You were reciting star names everyone ended in flourish." "Practicing for our library lectures," he said, voice husky with sleep. They shared a drowsy laugh. His palm drew lazy circles over her belly. Content. Kailas and Astra materialized near the foot of the bed. Astra laid her head over Selena's ankle. Kailas nudged Ronan's thigh. The two spirit wolves merged at the shoulders, glowing gold and silver at once. For a moment, Selena thought she could hear a heartbeat within their light, mirroring her own. They rose from the bed, pulling on warm clothes. Ronan grabbed 2 mugs and filled them from a kettle nestled at the hearth edge. They walked outside, into pre-dawn stillness. Snow squeaked, breath smoked. The frost garden awaited them at the end of the narrow stair. Lanterns had long since burned out, but dawn painted everything blue. Selena spotted something near an old vine, soft color amid the gray. A bloom. Delicate white petals tipped in pink, trembling in the chill. She knelt, cupped the blossom with gentle fingers. Ronan crouched beside her, setting the mugs in snow. He brushed a petal. "The vine was dead," he whispered. "Not dead," she corrected. "Waiting." Kailas and Astra fused again behind them. a tapestry of light breathing softly in the pale day. Selena touched the pendant seeds at her chest. Life finds cracks. Ronan wrapped an arm around her shoulders. And we give it room. They rose, clasping hands. Bells chimed somewhere far in the keep. First call to work. Voices echoed faint, rising like birdsong. Frost lilies along the wall shivered as sunlight spilled over rooftops. Selena closed her eyes, letting the light warm her lashes. And when the frost bloomed again, it wasn't just survival. It was love taking root. Selena and Ronan carried the fragile blossom back inside the keep, sheltering it from the nipping wind with a pocket of warm hands. Kalis and Astra glided ahead through corridors washed in early light, their paws brushing flagstones without sound. When they reached the small conservatory off the main hall, a glass-roofed alcove Reese kept just above freezing for winter herbs, Selena set the bloom into an empty clay pot lined with soft moss. Reese appeared, hair still tousled from sleep, a mug of steaming nettle tea in one hand. "Rescuing strays already?" he asked, kneeling to study the bloom. "She wasn't a stray," Selena said. She waited. Ronan laid a strip of parchment by the pot. "Heart of Dawn," he wrote in careful script. Reese smiled as he cast a faint warming rune beneath the soil. "She'll have sunlight by noon." Jonas poked his head in, chewing a corner of raisin bread. "Morning patrol reports clear skies and board guards. Vaughn's claiming the fiddlers for woodstack duty until lunch." "Tell him to meet us in the library shell," Ronan said, brushing soil from his fingers. "We'll mark beam positions." "Library before greenhouse," Jonas teased. "Ambitious." "Library for the stories, greenhouse for the cooking," Selena replied. "We need both by midsummer." Jonas saluted with his bread and ducked out, humming. They climbed 2 flights to the space they'd once used for storage, a long hall with arched windows, cleared weeks ago of crates and dust. Sunlight spilled across bare stone, each shaft filled with drifting flecks that looked like sleepy fireflies. Vaughn and Mirren leaned over floor plans propped against an easel, while Corin chalked rectangles on the flagstones to mark shelf foundations. Lysa sat cross-legged by the far wall, threading bright yarn around wooden dowels to create colorful shelf markers. Ronan walked the chalk outlines, measuring strides. 6 cubits between posts, he mused. Room for benches against the windows. Mirren handed Selena a charcoal stick. "Mark where you want the constellation ceiling panel." Selena paced the length until she reached the far window. Light poured in, illuminating dust motes into tiny galaxies. "Here," she said, drawing a soft cross at the center of a chalk square. "Directly over the reading nook." Corin grinned. "The books can reach the stars." Hilda shuffled in, cane clicking, followed by Ilyana, who carried a small crate. Ilyana set it down and opened the lid, revealing stacks of aged parchments bound with twine. "Original frost breath treatises from the north," Ilyana explained. "First donations to the collection." Ronan's eyebrows rose. "They belong in your archive." "And my archive belongs to Crescent-Fang," she said simply, placing the crate near Selena's mark. Her eyes sparkled. Knowledge multiplies in open hands. Selena's throat tightened. She bowed slightly. "Thank you." Ilyana touched Selena's shoulder, a warmth that sank through 3 layers of cloth, then drifted out with Hilda in tow, already discussing shelf heights. Work began. Vaughn measured plank lengths. Mirren took Corin's chalk and refined lines into straighter edges. Lisa sang softly, words stitched out of frost rhymes and spring wishes, her voice wrapping the hall in bright thread. Selena and Ronan rolled up sleeves and hoisted beams together. Each heft sent a small thrill down her back. The muscles in Ronan's arms flexed beneath the linen, and when he smiled over a balanced joist, she felt a flutter in her stomach beyond the new life forming there. Kalis and Astra lounged in one window, tails flicking in approval whenever a beam slid true. By mid-morning, Vaughn called a break. Jonas arrived with a basket of steaming bread rolls filled with pear and sage. Everyone sat on the floor among chalk lines and wood shavings. Ronan tore a roll in half, handed one to Selena. She brushed crumbs from his beard, laughing when Kalis tried to catch them on a spectral tongue. Mirren leaned against a beam. Imagine shelves here, sunlight there, children napping under books they pretend to read. Corin's eyes went round. We'll need more blankets. We'll weave them, Lisa declared, holding up her yarn markers. Selena's gaze slid to Ronan. Something unspoken passed between them, an image of their child running along these very shelves, tracing finger along spines, eyes full of wonder. Astra's ears perked as if hearing the vision, and a warm wave rolled through the room. Jonas cleared his throat. Afternoon meal in 1 hour. Hilda threatened famine if we ignore stew. Can we carry beams after eating? Corin asked. Not if you want arms tomorrow, Vaughn warned, ruffling the boy's hair. Selena rose, dusting chalk from her palms. Library walls can wait. Memories can't. She extended a hand to Lisa. Help me choose table shapes in the dining hall? Lisa popped up eagerly. Corin chased after them, Vaughn strolling behind, calling for moderate speeds. Myron and Jonas followed, still debating shelf heights. Soon only Ronan remained, sitting on a beam's edge with Kalis at his knee. Selena turned back in the doorway. You coming? He smiled. 5 minutes. Need to finish a thought. She nodded, understanding. Sometimes he needed a moment alone to breathe ideas into life. She headed down the corridor, Astra trotting at her heels. Ronan pulled charcoal from his pocket, crouched at the window where Kalis waited. He sketched quickly on the cleared stone. A cradle shape entwined with vines, and a wolf curled around it, a frost lily blooming at the cradle's foot. Kalis chuffed approval. Soon, Ronan whispered. Soon. He stood, brushed dust from knees, and followed the scent of stew. Lunch hummed with easy conversation. Hilda's venison broth vanished into empty bowls. Lisa accepted every compliment with a mock curtsy for her bread braids. Reese produced a small vial of blackberry cordial and poured half-thimble sips for all, claiming it aided digestion. Jonas toasted the library frames. Vaughn toasted sleep on unsplintered floors. Corin toasted Astra and Kaelus, who brightened like silver lamplight. After dishes were cleared, Selena guided Ronan back to their chamber for a rest before evening. She closed the door behind them, leaning against it while he crossed to set leftover bread on the hearth. Firelight painted his profile in amber. He turned, brow raised in question. What? He asked, voice low. Just thinking how Sunlight looks jealous of you, she teased. He laughed, crossed back, and stole a kiss. Her hands went to his waist, fingers curling in linen. For a moment, they stood in silence, breaths mingling, hearts sinking. Sit, he urged softly, guiding her to the cushioned window seat. When she settled, he knelt, palms sliding over her knees. Are you comfortable? Any aches? Just fluttery happiness, she said, brushing hair from his forehead. And maybe a nap. He rested head on her lap and she stroked his hair. Outside, soft snow drifted again, lazy and harmless. Kalis and Astra settled nearby. The room pulsed with quiet contentment. She dozed, half dreaming of vines twining over stone, until gentle lips brushed her wrist. Time, he whispered. They dressed in warmer coats for the Starlight picnic. Ronan slipped the seed pendant under her cloak, fingers lingering. Still there, he murmured. Still safe. Stars spilled over the sky by the time they stepped into the frost garden. Lanterns bobbed and swayed, music drifting in lazy spirals. Jonas and Vaughn handed out hot chestnut cakes. Reese poured spiced cocoa. Hilda lounged by the brazier, retelling Corin's arrow mishap until everyone cried with laughter. Selena and Ronan wove among clusters of blankets, greeting elders, praising woodworkers, gathering hugs that smelled of smoke and sugar. Astra and Kalis followed, letting children pet their shimmering fur, leaving trails of tiny snowflakes that melted into giggles. Eventually, Ronan guided Selena back to Heartroot. He spread a thick wool rug in front of the bloom, then sat, leaning against the raised bed frame. She settled between his legs, back resting against his chest. The flower's red glow haloed them both. Around the garden, lanterns dimmed one by one as families drifted home carrying sleeping toddlers. The air cooled, quieting to crackle of embers. Selena tilted her head back to look at Ronan. "Trace one?" she whispered. He smiled, pulled off a glove, and traced a line across her shoulder. "Narrow arc of 3 bright stars," he said. "I call it Shield of Frost." She closed her eyes, feeling his fingertip glide, and beside it a tiny spark of light, Seed of Fire. "Together," he murmured, finishing the constellation across her collarbone. "Always." Her hand covered his at her belly, the seed pendant pressed cool between them. They sat until the last ember sighed out. Frost crystals formed on the rug's edges, but wrapped in his arms, Selena felt only warmth. Kalis and Astra settled at Heartroot's base, heads bowed in serene watch. When quilt blankets beckoned, Ronan helped her stand. They made slow progress back to the tower, lantern in his hand casting golden circles on the stairwell walls. In their chamber, they undressed each other with gentle touches, every button a promise, every sigh a vow. They lay skin to skin beneath heavy quilts, the wolves silent sentinels at the door. Ronan traced tiny circles on her belly until her breathing deepened, then kissed her forehead and surrendered to sleep. Morning found them still entwined. Selena woke first, delighting in the unfamiliar peace of knowing no dire task awaited them. She kissed Ronan's jaw. He stirred, blinking. "Thought?" he asked, voice husky. "Libraries need windows that open," she said. "For fresh air in summer." He smiled, eyes glittering. "And vines outside each one? And benches for reading. And bells for new blossoms." She laughed softly. "You remember everything. Everything that matters." He kissed her softly. "Ready?" "Always." They dressed, Kalis and Astra leading them down the quiet hall. Outside on the landing, first light brushed the frost lily vines into pearl strands. A single bud they'd watched yesterday now stood open, petals so pale they caught sunrise and turned gold. Selena touched it. Ronan wrapped an arm around her waist. The wolves merged behind them, a single glowing form, still and bright. And when the frost bloomed again, it wasn't just survival. It was love taking root. The Moon Daughter. Final chapter, Chapter 20. Sunlight seeped through the high window in a gentle spill, touching Ronan's bare shoulder first, then sliding across the tangled quilt to warm Selena's cheek. She woke to the sound of steady breathing and the gentle rise of his chest beneath her palm. Kalis lay curled on the circular rug a few steps from the bed, silver flank rising and falling in perfect peace. Astra slept beside him, one luminous ear flicking each time Ronan's breath deepened. For the first time in a memory, Selena felt no aches, no dread, no shadows reaching for her mind, only the hush of morning and the warmth of the man she loved. She shifted just enough to see his face. Stubble dusted his jaw, sleep softened his mouth into a faint curve. She traced that curve with a fingertip. He stirred and opened amber eyes, still hazy with dreams. "Morning thief," he murmured. "Morning hoarder," she returned, brushing hair from his forehead. "Stealing all the blankets again." He gathered the quilt higher around her shoulders. "My only motive was keeping us warm, I swear." "Your only motive is cuddling me half to death," she teased, kissing the new freckle at his temple. He hummed, eyes closing as if savoring that small touch. "Let me stay guilty then." He stroked her hip beneath the quilt. "I dreamed of the library shelves. They were so full the beams bowed." "Then we need stronger beams." She tucked one leg over his, enjoying how their skin slid together without hurry or heat, simply closeness. "And shorter ladders before Corin breaks his collarbone climbing for adventure scrolls." Ronan chuckled. We'll rope the ladders to the posts, safety first. Kalis yawned, stretching one paw until claws scratched the rug. Astra opened her eyes, glowing slits of contentment. The bond settled like a shawl around them, a pulse of shared peace. Ronan smoothed his palm over Selena's abdomen. The curve was still subtle, but it carried the promise of life brighter than any sunrise. He whispered, "I wonder if she hears us already." "She does," Selena said with a certainty that surprised even her. "She knows laughter, and the way you hold your breath when you worry." "Caught," he murmured, pressing a soft kiss low on her belly. "I keep imagining her hand wrapped around my finger." He glanced up, expression flushed with wonder and fear. "Will I be enough?" She cupped his cheek. "You are already everything. Our daughter will learn patience from your quiet strength, courage from your stubborn hope, and probably sarcasm from my side of the family." He laughed, a sound half breath and half sunlight. "You forgot she'll inherit your frost and my temper. Crescent-Fang will build thicker doors." She rolled her eyes, smiling. "Your temper melted when you met me." "Or froze," he retorted. "Either way, you neutralized it." He sat up, stretching arms over his head. Muscles rippled beneath skin, marked by faint scars and fresh ink. Near his left shoulder blade, a small frost lily entwined a flame rune tattooed weeks ago. Selena reached to trace it. "Still tender?" she asked. "Barely." He leaned back into her touch. "I wanted something permanent, the story etched under skin." "It's beautiful." She ran her fingertips across the smooth lines before letting her hand drop. "Time to greet the day?" Slowly. He rose, donned loose trousers, and opened the window. Crisp air rolled in, smelling of pine, distant hearth smoke, and sweet yeast from the bakery. Morning bells chimed. 1, 2, 3 notes. Selena rose, wrapping a blanket around shoulders, and followed him to the sill. Beyond the courtyard, villagers moved like cheerful ants, 2 hauling a sack of seed grain, 1 brushing snow from stone paths, children chasing a stray chicken that clucked indignantly. "It still amazes me," she said softly. "What does?" "Peace, it's louder than battle if you listen." He slid an arm around her waist, "And we'll keep it loud." Astra patted over, resting her head on the windowsill. Kalis nudged Ronan's calf, tail sweeping. Selena felt joy lift inside, buoyed by the wolf's steady pulse. "Breakfast," she decided, stepping back and tugging the quilt tighter. "Then work. Your crib needs legs." "I carved 2 yesterday. 2 more to go." He grinned. "Slave driver." "Delicate cargo," she reminded. They dressed quickly in soft wool layers. Selena in a teal sweater Mirren had knitted with frost lily motifs across the shoulders. Ronan in charcoal trousers and a deep green tunic that set his eyes aflame. Selena braided her hair to one side. Ronan laced his boots and grabbed her mittens before she could protest the chill. Downstairs, the hall buzzed with fragrant air. Vaughn leaned against a doorframe, biting a dough twist. "Morning, sleepyheads," he called. Kitchen saved cinnamon rolls. "I knew you loved me," Ronan said, accepting the pastry. "Pure self-interest," Vaughn retorted. "Less pastry, less complaining." Selena snagged one too, biting into warm dough. Hilda emerged from the kitchen, brandishing a spoon like a scepter. "If you touch the honey glaze before it sets, I'll tie you to the weaver's loom." "Threat noted," Ronan said around cinnamon. Hilda's eyes softened despite the stern tone landing on Selena's belly. "Come, child," she said gentler, "warm milk and berries for you." Selena followed, feeling Ronan's hand brush her lower back as if he couldn't bear to lose contact. Hilda poured milk into a clay cup marked with a frost rune. "Reese's work." "Blueberries crushed," Hilda said, stirring. "Strength for mother and babe." Selena accepted, sipping sweet warmth. "Thank you." Hilda tapped her spoon to Selena's chin, then to Ronan's. "Rest tonight," she warned. "Mid-spring storms due tomorrow. Don't want little wolf arriving in thunder." Ronan blanched. Selena smiled. We'll keep her cozy, Selena promised, patting her stomach. Astra yipped softly in agreement. They exited to the courtyard. Snow had tapered to bright sparkles under sunlight. Reese hauled planks across the clearing to the greenhouse frame. Jonas hammered guide stakes near the library walls. Corin tried to lift a plank twice his height. Vaughn laughed and swooped in to help. Lysa skipped behind them, scattering sawdust for the birds. Selena and Ronan veered to the workshop shed. Inside, sweet cedar and fresh shavings scented the air. Ronan retrieved the half-finished crib from a workbench, sturdy sides carved with arcs of flame and curls of frost, meeting in the middle like clasped hands. Selena ran her palm along the rail. It's perfect. Needs smoothing. He set the crib on its side, digging a plane out of a drawer. Your herbs? She pulled a small pouch from her coat. Lavender for inside the mattress, marigold for courage, crushed mint for sweet dreams. He winked. Our daughter will smell like a garden. Better than smelling like you after greenhouse duty, she shot back. I'll bathe. He planed the edge, wood curling away in thin ribbons. Selena sanded lightly with a cloth, humming. Kylus curled at the doorway. Astra lay by the workbench's far leg, tail brushing sawdust into circles. While they worked, they tossed names back and forth. Reyna, Selena suggested. Means queen. Ronan mused. Too formal. Zara? Makes me think of lightning. He paused. What about Lyra? Selena's hand stilled. Lyra, she murmured. The harp star. The first constellation I mapped on your shoulder, he reminded, a flush warming his cheeks. She smiled, tears prickling. Lyra. It fits. Astra whispered through the bond. Not words, but a feeling of rightness, as though the sound resonated in some hidden chord. Kylus answered with a rumble of soft approval. They carved the name in tiny runes across the crib's underside. By noon, the crib stood complete, smooth to the touch and smelling of cedar and promise. Selena draped a knit blanket over the rail. Ronan slid his arms around her from behind. Ready to invite everyone, he asked. I'm ready for everything. They carried the crib between them down the hall. Corin spotted them and shouted, The throne arrives! Lisa clapped. Mirren hurried over, eyes wide. Time for a break, Jonas declared, dropping his hammer. Vaughn tucked his fiddle under his chin, plucked a lilting tune. Reese wiped sawdust from his sleeves. Hilda marched ahead, brandishing an apron. In the frost garden, lanterns already hung from branches. Mirren's handiwork this morning. Elders Nadra and Auric waited near Heartroot, hands clasped. Ilyana arranged chairs near the flower bed, silver hair glinting. Selena and Ronan set the crib on a wool rug. Vaughn's fiddle music drifted over snowflakes like floating silk. Hilda handed out mugs of warm berry punch. Lisa and Corin darted around, planting tiny flags of bright cloth near each seat. Kylus and Astra circled, tails wagging slowly. Ronan cleared his throat. The chatter hushed. He clasped Selena's hand and spoke, voice steady but soft. We asked you here because families aren't built on walls alone. They grow from shared laughter, trust earned, and hearts kept open. Each of you helped build ours. He squeezed Selena's hand. We wanted you to see the cradle of the future you protected. Selena felt tears slip free. Thank you, she whispered to them all. You gave me a home when I wasn't sure I deserved one. Hilda wiped at her eyes, muttering about onion vapors. Jonas patted her shoulder, eyes suspiciously bright. Mirren beamed like dawn. Nadra and Auric exchanged a look of proud relief. They drifted among their friends, hugging, clasping hands, sharing memories. Ilyana pressed a small crystal charm into Selena's palm, moonstone carved into a tiny harp. For Lyra's first lullaby, she said. Selena promised she would string it above the crib. Kylus nudged Vaughn's elbow. The fiddler switched to a playful jig. Corin seized Jonas's hands and spun. Lysa tugged Reese into a clumsy dance. Selena laughed. Ronan kissed her cheek, murmuring, Our village dances because you breathe. No, she whispered back, because we breathe together. Afternoon slipped toward gold. People helped carry leftover pastries to the kitchens, promising to return by moonrise for star watching. Hilda herded children toward the dormitory. Jonas resumed supervising library beams. Reese escorted Nadra and Oric inside, their bones creaky but spirits high. Selena and Ronan stood side by side watching lanterns wink in the new shadow. Astra and Kalis flanked them, silent guards. "Walk with me?" Ronan asked. She nodded. They left the garden through the narrow arch, following a path to the grove where their bond had first trembled awake months before. Snow muffled their steps, but the hush felt friendly now. The tree stood tall, branches bare, yet buzzing with life beneath bark. Selena touched the trunk. "So much has grown from this place," she said. Ronan traced a faint scar on the bark, his blade mark from that first encounter. He sighed. "I was so sure love would weaken me." She smiled. "Instead it multiplied you." He laughed quietly, drawing her hand to his lips. "Thank you for every breath you shared." She stepped closer, cupping his neck. "Thank you for never letting go." Warm tears slipped. He kissed them away. They lingered under the tree, exchanging soft kisses and gentle words. Kalis and Astra sat at either side, silent as stone, but hearts shining. As twilight deepened, they returned to the keep, passing through halls alive with baking smells and laughter. The wolves followed, tails swishing. In their chamber, Ronan lit a single candle. Selena pulled him to the window. "Look," she whispered. Lanterns floated into the sky, villagers launching early candles for the night's celebration. Tiny sparks drifted upward, reflections dancing in Ronan's eyes. "Our love is in every light," she said, "and every breath." He kissed her slowly. Ronan lifted Selena's hand to his lips, brushing a kiss across her knuckles before drawing her back to the fire. "You need warmth," he said, easing her onto the cushioned window seat. The single candle threw gold across the walls, soft as a heartbeat. Outside, more lanterns rose on invisible currents, each one swelling Selena's chest with quiet awe. "They're brighter than last year," she whispered. He unlatched a wool blanket from a nearby chair and draped it around her shoulders. "Because the hands that light them aren't afraid anymore." "Because we aren't." She tugged him down beside her. For a long, quiet moment, they simply watched. Lanterns dwindled into sparks. Snow padded the roofs, muffling the distant calls of children coaxed indoors for supper. Astra padded closer, resting her chin on Selena's knee. Kalis settled at Ronan's feet, exhaling a low rumble that thrummed in Selena's ribs, contentment thrumming back through the bond. She felt warmth pulse through her own pulse, her daughter's pulse all braided like woven ribbons. Selena's fingers traced the carved edges of the seed pendant resting against her heart. "Do you dream what she'll look like?" she asked. "Often." Ronan brushed her braid from her shoulder, smoothing a stray curl. "Dark hair like mine, maybe. Your eyes, though blue flame and silver frost in one gaze, sounds like trouble. Then Crescent-Fang will never grow dull." She laced her fingers with his. "Whatever she looks like, she'll be stubborn." "Non-negotiable," he agreed, smiling. A knock echoed soft on the doorframe. Mirren poked her head in, cheeks rosy. "I knew you two would hide somewhere romantic." She carried a basket of newly woven blankets, folded and still smelling of wool grease and lavender. "Finished the last quilt, thought you'd want first pick." Selena's eyes widened. "You finished already?" Corin helped. His stitches wander, but they hold. Mirren set the basket on the table. One for Lyra's crib, one for your reading nook, one for Hilda's knees, and one to barter if Jonas raids the honey stores again. Ronan rose, tugging the top blanket free. Dark gray wool, soft and heavy, embroidered at each corner with a frost lily entwined with a flame swirl. He traced the design. "It's perfect. Better be, Myron said, pale eyes glinting. I pricked my finger more times than Vaughn missed notes on that fiddle. Selena laughed. We'll treasure every drop of blood. She hugged Myron, blanket and all. Astra nudged Myron's thigh with a gentle headbutt. Myron stroked the spirit wolf's ear and chuckled. She likes the smell. Lavender's calming. Ronan slung the quilt over his arm. Thank you, sister. Anytime. Myron's gaze softened on Selena's belly. She kicked again. Danced, Selena replied. She likes Vaughn's triumphant jig. Poor girl. Poor village, Myron teased. Rest, both of you. Tomorrow's greenhouse day. She slipped out. Ronan folded the blanket and laid it over the crib, smoothing a hand across the perfect corners. The carved flame and frost symbols glowed under candlelight. Another name settled, Selena mused. Lyra. It feels right. He touched the rune along the crib rail. Guiding star. She'll guide us as much as we guide her. Selena rubbed her belly, smiling when a flutter answered. See? She agrees. The next morning broke bright, sun flashing diamond shards off the snow. Selena woke to muffled hammering below, the greenhouse frame rising beam by beam. Ronan wasn't beside her. She pushed free of quilts, found him barefoot by the window, hair haloed in gold, scribbling on a sheaf of parchment. Catching ideas before they drift, he said, turning when she wrapped arms around his waist. Morning. Morning. She kissed the base of his throat, tasting quiet happiness. What idea? Triangular supports for the greenhouse roof. Jonas suggested diagonal braces. I worried about glare melt. She peered at his drawing, a delicate lattice of thin beams topped by angled panes. Looks like the bones of a glass forest. That's the plan. He set the paper down, cupped her face. Breakfast? After I'd dress, she sighed, glancing at her hair. I look like a nest. I like nests, he murmured, nuzzling her forehead, then stepped back. I'll start tea. By the time she dressed and braided her hair, Ronan had a tray ready, steam swirling from peppermint tea, thick slices of honeyed bread, and a cluster of dried apricots. They ate perched on the window seat. Workers below called measurements, laughter rising between thuds. Astra appeared, pressing her nose to Selena's ankle until she slipped a crust down. Kalis caught crumbs Ronan brushed from his lap. Halfway through her bread, Selena's breath caught, an unexpected tightening deep in her abdomen. She set her cup down. Ronan noticed instantly. Pain? His hand hovered over her belly. No, just a squeeze. She waited, breathing. The sensation eased. She smiled. Practice wave. She's impatient. He exhaled. And I'm unprepared. He studied her face. You're sure you're comfortable? I'd tell you the moment I'm not. She finished her bread. Now, herbs await. Late morning found them in the greenhouse skeleton. Glass panels leaned against a stone wall, sparkling like fall ice. Jonas balanced on a ladder, hammering braces while Vaughn steadied the frame. Hilda shuffled in, cane, tapping rhythm. Everyone duck if glass falls, she warned. Oryx back can't haul anyone to Reese today. Selena rolled her eyes affectionately. It won't fall, Ronan's math is sturdy. It better be, Jonas muttered, resetting a nail. Frost Queen will banish me if a beam slips. Banish you to extra breakfast, Lysa chimed from a wheelbarrow piled with soil bags. She hands out pastries, not punishment. Hilda snorted. She hands out both depending on mood. Selena flushed. I prefer hugs. Corin emerged from behind a support beam holding 3 cedar seedling trays. Where do these go? Along the east row, Ronan said, indicating with a chalk mark on the floor. They'll catch morning light. As he guided Corin, Selena opened her pouch, dusting lavender across raised planters. Restful dreams, she whispered. Astra padded behind, pressing frost into the soil like silent fertilizer. Ilyana arrived, silver hair braided with ivy. She carried a small ceramic dish of crushed moonstone. Grounding enchantment, she explained, scattering the powder into each planter. Keeps delicate blooms from wilting under frost magic. Selena hugged her. Thank you, Mother Moon. Ileana smiled softly, eyes shining. Daughter Dawn, you glow brighter each day. She traced a rune over Selena's belly, just her finger, no magic, only a blessing of touch. Ronan watched from beneath the ladder, heart in his throat at the sight. Ancient healer and young mother bound by warmth. Kalis nudged his leg, sending comfort up the bond. Hammering resumed. Glass slotted into frames, catching sunbeams in prismatic shards. By midday, half the roof sparkled with assembled panes. Steam rolled out from Reese's kettle under a brazier, thick with ginger. Workers drank, cheeks glowing. Selena knelt to plant frost lilies along a box by the entrance. Mirren crouched beside, anchoring a vine. You're slow today, she whispered. Balancing speed and caution, Selena admitted. Mirren squeezed her hand. We'll handle the heavy lifting, you take breaks. She raised a brow until Selena nodded. Not long after, another squeeze tightened Selena's belly, stronger than before. She froze, one hand bracing the soil. Astra stiffened, ears flicking. Selena? Ronan's voice carried sharp. She exhaled. Still practice? She forced a smile. His worry softened, but she sensed him counting her breaths. The team called lunch. Wooden benches appeared, laden with root stew, barley rolls, and berry hand pies. Selena sat between Hilda and Lysa. Corin perched opposite, devouring stew with wide eyes. Mid-meal, a warm flutter nudged Selena's ribs, which made her laugh into her cup. Lysa caught the motion. Baby dance? Baby somersault, Selena confirmed. Corin's eyes widened. I want to feel. He scrambled around the bench. Selena guided his small hand to the right spot. Lyra kicked again. Corin gasped, delighted. She's practicing sword strikes, Ronan teased, leaning over. Take notes. That's strong for someone so little, Hilda marveled, tears in her eyes. She patted Selena's back. She'll outswim us all. After lunch, Selena retreated to the finished library shell, needing quiet. She sat on the window seat with a fresh diary, started writing a letter to Lyra in case future years changed the memory of this day. She described lanterns rising, frost lilies blooming, her father's soft laugh. Halfway through, another tightening surged, stronger but still manageable. She gripped the pendant. Someone knocked gently. Reese peeked in. Checking pulses, he said. He knelt, took her wrist. His brow furrowed. Any pain? Just waves, Selena murmured, though sweat dotted her upper lip. Keep water close. He squeezed her shoulder and left. She sipped from the glass he'd set out. Kalis patted in, lying across the doorway. Astra nestled at her feet. The room smelled of cedar and sun-warmed dust. She finished the letter. By the time she signed her name, late afternoon shadows stretched long across the floor. She stood, planning to find Ronan, and almost doubled over at a sudden hard contraction. Astra barked, sharp, urgent. Kalis threw his head back, releasing a quiet call. Footsteps thundered down the corridor. Ronan burst in, Jonas right behind. Selena straightened, leaning on the windowsill. Now, she gasped, breath shaky. Jonas sprinted to fetch Ileana. Ronan wrapped arms around her waist, guiding her to the door. Slow, he murmured, voice calm but eyes blazing. I'm fine, she insisted. You're incredible, he corrected. Astra wove between their legs, leading. Kalis trotted ahead toward the birthing chamber, a spare room warmed all morning per Ileana's instructions. Inside candles flickered. A copper tub steamed near the hearth. Ileana entered, Hilda right behind, rolling sleeves to elbows. Mirren followed with towels stacked to her chin. Everyone breathe, Ileana directed. Selena, tub first, warm water eases early pains. Ronan helped ease her clothes away. He traced a frost swirl over her spine, soothing heat. She stepped into the water. It clutched her with comforting warmth. Astra pressed nose to Ronan's thigh, calm flowing into him. Hours blurred into slow tides of breath and gentle encouragement. Selena gripped Ronan's hands through each wave, listening to Ileana's steady voice. Hilda murmured stories of long-ago births, each one ending in laughter. Mirren dabbed Selena's brow, humming lullabies. Outside, snow fell again, soft, endless feathers. Jonas patrolled the hall, turning away any curious souls. Vaughn and Reese stood guard with flasks of warming tea. Pain crested, then calmed. Between contractions, Selena's mind floated, seeing lanterns, frost blooms, Ronan's first hesitant smile when he'd realized love wouldn't break him. Now that smile burned bright at arm's length, grounding her. Time lost shape. Finally, Ileana's voice sharpened. Selena, one more breath, then push. Ronan's forehead pressed to hers. I'm here, he breathed. Kalis and Astra circled, spirits brightening into dazzling arcs. Selena bore down, feeling every muscle ignite, and the world narrowed to heat, water, and raw life. A cry pierced the chamber, sharp, new, startling. Selena sagged, tears streaking her cheeks. Ronan squeezed her shoulders, eyes shimmering. Ileana lifted a small, slick infant, tiny fists flailing, then laid her against Selena's chest. Selena looked down at the damp hair clinging to a round head, tiny eyelids blinking open. Eyes, one a deep twilight blue, the other pale silver gray, met hers. Lyra, she whispered, voice cracked. Ronan cradled them both, arms trembling. Lyra, he echoed, kissing the baby's forehead, then Selena's temple. Guide star, our light. Hilda sniffed loudly, pressing a cloth to her nose. Mirren wept openly, wiping tears with her sleeve. Astra brushed ghost fur across Lyra's tiny foot. Kalis breathed warm spirit air, and the infant relaxed, small fist opening around emptiness before curling again. Lyra's cry settled into soft breaths. Ileana checked her swiftly, pronouncing her strong and perfect. She wrapped mother and child in thick towels, leaving Ronan to carry them to the bed near the hearth. Selena lay back, clutching the small body to her chest, feeling the steady rhythm of new life against her ribs. Ronan sat at her side, fingers tracing the curve of Lyra's cheek. She looks like sunrise on frost, he murmured. She looks like home, Selena answered. The wolves curled at the foot of the bed, eyes half-lidded, energy weaving around the room in threads of silver and gold. Ronan lifted Selena's free hand, kissing each knuckle. Thank you. For what? For choosing me to stand beside you in every storm. She smiled, brushing a tear from his cheek. You became the calm. He rested his head on her shoulder, one hand resting lightly over hers, both covering Lyra. In that gentle hush, snow fell outside with the hush of a lullaby. Dawn scraped pale pink across the sky 2 weeks later, spilling into the frost garden. Lyra slept in her crib by the window, tiny lips pursed. Selena watched, rocked by a profound tenderness every time Lyra's chest rose. Ronan entered quietly, carrying a small blossom of heartroot, one petal, bright red, trimmed to a slender stem. For her festival crown, he murmured, laying the bloom beside the crib. Today we celebrate. The new *** Blossom Festival ** unfurled like a song. Villagers wove garlands from frost lilies and fire blooms, draping them over doors. Children painted wooden tokens, sun, moon, and wolf, tying them to lantern strings. Hilda supervised soup kettles large enough to bathe in. Vaughn tuned his fiddle, promising a lullaby melody to match the stars. Selena entered the square holding Lyra close. Ronan walked beside, lantern pole in hand. Jonas struck a handbell. Conversation hushed. Nadra and Oryx spoke a quiet blessing. then nodded for Selena and Ronan to step forward. Ronan lit the first lantern, its ice shell etched with Lyra's name in tiny runes. Selena whispered a wish into the flame. Together they released it. The lantern drifted upward, glowing crimson and silver intertwined. Cheers rose. More lanterns followed, ascending in slow spirals until the sky bloomed with light. Lysa rushed up, presenting a flower crown sized for Lyra's downy head. Corin handed Ronan a small carved whistle shaped like a wolf, promising it would summon laughter on gloomy days. Hilda pressed a vial of honey-infused elixir into Selena's hand for weary nights. Music began, soft and sweet. Ronan took Selena's free hand, spinning her gently even while she held their daughter. People clapped. Lantern light shimmered across smiling faces. Astra and Kalis lay in the snow at the square's edge, two watchful guardian stars reflecting every joy around them. Hours later, long after children drifted to sleep in their parents' arms, Selena and Ronan ascended the keep wall. Snowflakes drifted lazily under moonlight. Lanterns still bobbed on their strings, filling the night with gentle fire. Lyra stirred in Selena's arms, making a small coo. Ronan stroked the soft tufts of her hair. "We did this," Selena whispered, awe-coloring every word. Ronan kissed her temple. "We'll protect it." "I never let myself imagine this." She scanned rooftops sparkling under frost, lanterns shifting like quiet galaxies. It felt impossible. "This was always where we were meant to end," Ronan said. "Love was the road." She pressed her cheek to his shoulder. Astra and Kalis materialized near their feet. Kalis nudged Selena's calf. Astra nosed Lyra's blanket, humming energy that felt like a lullaby in Selena's bones. Lyra blinked up at the wolves with wide fascination, fist-waving. Selena smiled. "She sees them." "She'll see more than we ever did," Ronan murmured. He wrapped his free arm around Selena's waist. "We'll teach her stars and frost and how to dance in lantern light." "And how to trust love," Selena whispered. Lyra yawned, cuddling closer. Ronan's hand covered both wife and child, anchoring them to the earth, and to him. Later, Lyra slept soundly in her cedar crib, the blanket Mirren made tucked to her chin. Kalis rested by the door, Astra curled beneath the window seat, silver tail flicking in dream rhythms. Selena and Ronan stood near the window, arms around each other, watching moonlight pour across the chamber floor like liquid silver. "You're still awake," he murmured. "So are you." She smiled, tracing a line across his chest. "Can't stop looking," he admitted, turning to gaze at their daughter. "We'll look together." She leaned into him. "And walk, and build, and grow." "Yes." He kissed her forehead. "Always yes." He drew her into his arms, holding her against his heartbeat. Outside, the crescent moon glowed with tranquil light, casting gentle shadows across frost lilies blooming even in night chill. In the hush of that moment, wolves breathing steady, daughter dreaming safe, hearts fused, their story settled into peaceful rest. And beneath the silver glow of the crescent moon, love finally rested, not as a whispered hope, but as a quiet, eternal promise. Jonas's hammer rang one last time, the crisp strike echoing through the long hall that would soon house thousands of stories. Selena watched from a cushioned bench near the tall arched window, Lyra cradled against her shoulder. The scent of fresh cedar and warm beeswax filled the nearly finished library, beams now sanded smooth and glowing honey gold in the afternoon light. Sun caught swirling motes of sawdust still hanging in the air like tiny constellations. "All braces secured," Jonas called, wiping sweat from his brow. "If this ceiling caves, it'll be because Vaughn sings too loud, not because I miscounted nails." Vaughn, tuning his fiddle on a stepstool, shot him a mock glare. "I only sing off-key when Reese replaces my tea with sawdust." Reese looked up from a crate of medical ledgers. "Sawdust might settle your ego." Laughter rippled through the hall. Ronan strode in from the corridor, sleeves rolled, thin curl of wood still clinging to his hair. He carried 2 polished plaques. One read ** Archive of Hearts *, the other * Sanctuary of Voices *. He paused in front of Selena and Lyra, uncertainty flickering in his eyes. "Which feels right?" he asked softly. Selena brushed shavings from his temple. "Archive of Hearts," she said. "Stories live, and hearts remember." Lyra made a soft chirp, almost as if in agreement. Kailas, lounging at Selena's feet, thumped his tail. Astra looked up from under the bench, eyes gleaming approval. "Archive of Hearts it is." Ronan crossed to the double doors where Hilda perched on a ladder, cane hooked over one rung, while she polished the hinges with a scrap of linen. "Need help, old wolf?" Ronan teased. "You calling me old when you squeak louder than those hinges." Hilda snorted, but she took the plaque with a pleased smile. Together they fastened it above the door. When Hilda climbed down, Mirren handed her a ribbon of frost blue silk to drape over the frame. "Opening in 3 days," Mirren announced. "Plenty of time to stock shelves, if Jonas stops hammering long enough to listen." "I heard that." Jonas tossed the hammer onto a crate. "Someone label these aisles before Vaughn files herbals under heroic ballads." Vaughn let out an indignant squawk. "Herbals are heroic. They keep us alive to sing." Later that afternoon, Selena settled in the reading nook, the one she'd marked for the constellation panel months ago. The seat cushions were freshly sewn, covered in dove-gray wool. A narrow skylight framed a slice of winter sky, already blushing rose in the west. Ronan joined her, lowering himself onto the bench beside her. "Window opens perfectly," he said, testing the latch. A cold breeze swept in, riffled Lyra's downy hair, then left as quickly as it came. Lyra made a small snuffling sound, eyes still closed. She'd hardly stirred since her morning feeding. "I wish she could hear the lullaby Vaughn's rehearsing," Selena whispered. "But sleep is the deeper song. We'll bring the tune to her ears later." He traced a fingertip over Lyra's tiny fist. Every note. Jonas approached quietly, carrying a stone tablet no bigger than his palm. Into it he'd chiseled a slender flame twisting around a single frost lily, mirroring the tattoo on Ronan's shoulder. Below, 2 words read, *, First Light *. "For the entry step," Jonas said, placing it into Ronan's hand. Then he ducked away before sentiment could fog his eyes. Vaughn struck a bright chord on the fiddle from across the hall, filling the silence with sound. Selena studied the carving. "It belongs right at the threshold," she said, "so everyone remembers the reason this place stands." Ronan squeezed Jonas's shoulder in passing, then knelt at the edge of the doorway. He set the stone into fresh mortar and smoothed grout around its edges with a small trowel. Kailas pressed his nose to Ronan's shoulder. Astra brushed her side against Selena's calf, grounding them both in a wave of contentment. When the stone was set, Hilda handed Ronan a damp cloth. "Done well," she said, voice husky. She looked at Lyra, eyes twinkling. "Your first step will land on love, little cub." Selena's heart swelled. She rose carefully and crossed to the entry. Holding Lyra securely, she bent and pressed her daughter's tiny foot, wrapped in a wool sock, to the edge of the stone, just enough to leave a faint impression in the wet mortar. Gasps and soft laughs sounded around them. "Now it's official," Mirren whispered, wiping at her eyes. Evening deepened. Lanterns blinked to life along corridor walls, their golden light guiding footsteps toward the frost garden. Selena walked slowly beside Ronan. Lyra nestled against her chest in a sling embroidered with frost lilies and flame swirl patterns. Astra and Kailas paced ahead, tails sweeping low, clearing a gentle path through drifting snow. At Heartroot's bed, a new circular stone table had been placed. On its surface lay a single parchment, Selena's letter to Lyra. Ronan's letter to Lyra rested beside it, both sealed with intertwined wolf runes. Mirren had tied them with a soft crimson ribbon. Nadra and Oryx stood ready, holding a small cedar box carved with spiral frost motifs. Selena passed Lyra gently to Ronan, then slid her letter into the box. Ronan placed his on top. Nadra closed the lid and tightened a silver latch. "This chest will rest under the library's eastern arch," Auric intoned, voice steady despite the tremor of emotion. "It will remain sealed until Lyra chooses to open it." Selena kissed the top of the box. "May these words guide her when we cannot." Jonas and Vaughn lifted the chest between them, carrying it toward the library. Reese followed with a lantern, throwing long shadows on the snow. Selena exhaled, feeling a ribbon untwist in her chest. Hilda shooed everyone toward the dining hall. "Soup's thickening. Don't let it scorch." Ronan kept Selena close. Lyra stirred, tiny brows furrowing. Selena stroked her back until she settled. "Hungry again soon," she whispered. Like her mother. Ronan's smile was soft, teasing. "At least she eats slower." They shared a grin. Inside the hall, long oak tables gleamed. Hilda's enormous cauldrons of root vegetable soup steamed at each end, flanked by baskets of herb rolls and plates of spiced cheese. Lanterns dangled from rafters, each etched with a frost flame sigil. Selena sat with Lyra in a cushioned corner, sipping broth from a shallow cup. Ronan returned with a plate heaped with extra bread. He tore soft pieces, dipping them into soup, and fed her between sips. Across the table, Corin and Lisa debated which dessert tasted more like spring, honey tarts or berry dumplings. "Have both," Ronan said, handing them 2 plates. Their squeals of delight made Lyra blink open star-bright eyes. She looked about, gaze drawn by flickering lantern light. Astra brushed her nose along Lyra's ear, and the baby cooed. Music began, Vaughn's fiddle leading a gentle lullaby. Reese accompanied with a low whistle, Jonas with a soft drum tap. Selena hummed along, rocking. Lyra's eyes fluttered closed. After desserts vanished and lantern wicks burned low, Hilda nudged Selena toward the hall exit. "Bed for all 3, she ordered. "Mother needs sleep, father needs sense, babe needs dreams." They obeyed, slipping into the corridor dimly lit by moonlight. Snow sifted through arrow slits in the outer wall, dusting the stone floor. Ronan draped his cloak over Selena's shoulders, covering Lyra too. Kalis padded silently behind Astra by Selena's knee. Halfway up the tower steps, Ronan paused. Lyra slept deeply, lips parted. He rested a palm on Selena's cheek. "Stay here a moment," he whispered. He opened the nearest narrow window. The howl of gentle wind swept in, carrying the scent of pine and distant lantern oil. He held out his free hand. Falling snowflakes landed on his palm. He lifted the hand to Lyra's sleeping face, letting one flake melt against her cheek. "First snow's wish," he murmured. "When she's older, we'll tell her what dreams looked like the night she first slept through the lantern songs." Selena pressed her lips to his ear. "Tell me now." I wished she'd never doubt the worth of her voice. Selena's eyes stung. "She'll know. She'll hear us sing her name." They continued up the stairs. In their chamber, embers glowed faintly in the hearth. Astra circled the crib once, tail brushing the cedar rail, then settled on the rug. Kalis stood sentinel by the door, ears angled to every corridor murmur. Selena eased Lyra onto the linen sheet, tucking Mirren's soft quilt around her. Lyra sighed without waking. Ronan lit a single candle beside the crib, then drew Selena to the window. Outside, lanterns still floated upward, dozens, perhaps hundreds, drifting toward the stars. "Look," he whispered, "they form a constellation." She followed his gesture. Lanterns clustered into a shape she recognized. Lyra, the harp. Her breath caught. "Our village writes with light." Ronan pulled her close, arms around her waist. "They write hope. And peace." She leaned her cheek to his chest, listening to his heartbeat. "It feels like the world exhaled." He brushed her braid aside, lips at her temple. "It's your doing." "Ours," she corrected. Kalis rumbled softly. Astra's ears flicked. Ronan held Selena's gaze. "Sing with me," he whispered. Together they hummed the lullaby Vaughn had played, soft notes, 3 simple rising chords. Lyra shifted, eyes fluttering open just long enough to catch the candlelight. Then she sighed, drifting back to sleep. Selena pressed her lips to Ronan's. "Thank you," she breathed when they parted. "For what?" "For every tomorrow." He smiled, a tiny curve full of wonder. "We'll greet each one together." They stood watching Lyra's peaceful breathing until their own eyelids drooped. Ronan banked the fire to a slower glow. Selena checked the window latch, ensuring only quiet winter air would slip in. Kalis and Astra took their places beside Lyra's crib, guardians at peace. Selena and Ronan climbed into their bed, quilts pulled high. Outside, snowflakes continued to fall, lanterns continued to rise, and Crescent-Fang breathed the slow, satisfied rhythm of a village reborn. Selena turned toward Ronan, finding his eyes already on her. They shared a sleepy smile, hands meeting above the quilt. The candle flame flickered, then steadied, and beneath the silver glow of the crescent moon, love finally rested, not as a whispered hope, but as a quiet, eternal promise.